All right, I can wing it.
Kill. Turn that volume. Turn that sound off on that guy.
It's already muted.
On the other one. The other one. Steph. Stephanie.
Or
Okay, are we ready?
yeah.
Okay. All right. I want to thank everyone for Again, I want to thank everyone for attending today's Board of Supervisors November 3rd meeting. And I guess the first thing I should say is today's election day. Make sure you vote and see who wins. But again, thank you for attending today's meeting. Can I have Supervisor Batallo lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Supervisor Batallo.
You're welcome, thank you.
Gabriela, you want to share with the public on how they can reach and communicate with the Board of Supervisors?
Good morning, everyone. If you are participating by Zoom, please press *9 or the raise your hand icon if you wish to speak during public comment. Please state your full name for the record, and each person will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriela. Okay, first item is presentations and recognitions of Board of Supervisors. We'll present recognitions to Elvia Gomez, a personal friend of mine, as a civil clerk and record supervisors, and Bryan for 47 years of service as a reserve deputy upon his retirement. I see that we have very important members of the public joining us today, Sheriff and former Sheriff Curtis Hill.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen in the room and those in the community that might be joining us via live stream. It's my honor and privilege to be here this morning and to acknowledge some special people who have transitioned into probably, hopefully, a better phase of life, one without as much work and strife as it is to be in the work field. And we're hoping that these two can enjoy their retirement. But with us today is retired Reserve Officer Bryan, our retired Civil Clerk and Records Supervisor Avelia Gomez, and we're particularly honored also to have retired Sheriff Curtis Hill with us today to participate in our presentation, which will be rather brief, but thank you again for allowing us to come today before you. I'm going to speak just a little bit about Avelia.
Sorry.
No worries. Avelia joined our team in March of 1996 as a typist clerk 2. She transitioned to an office assistant 3 in April of 2000. Her next promotion was to sheriff records specialist in March of 2002. From there, she moved into our civil division, has remained there for these past 16 years. Avelia developed quite an expertise during her years working in civil. In a brief review of her personnel file, I found quite a few things that she had satisfactorily completed. The basic records management course, the civil processes course, advanced civil procedures course, civil records supervisor course, and she also regularly attended the California State Sheriff's Association's annual civil seminar. If you haven't been to one of the sheriff's seminars, it's not as much fun as you would imagine. They actually try to pack those intensely with information and make that a very scholastic environment. She also attended the California Law Enforcement Records Supervisor seminars. I found accommodation for good work from Sheriff Nyland back in 1996 for her work in planning, logistics, and operations for the 1996 motorcycle rally. She received a letter of appreciation from a citizen over her public relations skills, leading to a letter of commendation from Sheriff Nyland in 1998. And when you hear these other sheriffs, keep in mind that that's spanning a pretty significant amount of time. Our county has only ever elected 15 sheriffs since our history, beginning in late 1800s. And so Sheriff Nyland was our 13th sheriff. Avelia has made many contributions here and has had quite an impact. In 2002, she received a leadership award from LULAC. Avelia has also been quite a personality in our office, often exhibiting relational efforts and skills and cooking for us, bringing us treats from home, and keeping the workplace comfortable for us. And we love those things. In fact, she even made us all masks by hand back in March when we first began this very unappealing process. But my favorite thing about Avelia is that she never got me sued. The work that we do in the civil realm is very litigious, and it has to be done very technically, very specifically, and very carefully. And if that's not the case, there's litigation to follow. And in the 10 years, Avelia, that you worked for me, I never once had to come and defend your work because it was always done so well. And I know that we make a joke about that, but honestly and sincerely from my heart, I'm so grateful to you for that and your attentiveness to your job over the years. And so, Avelia, congratulations on making the finish line. A job well done for sure. And we have a little plaque for you. Just some wall art, and I hope that you put this in a prominent place, and when you see it, that you look back fondly on your years that you spent with us. Present that to you. Do you want to say anything? Yeah.
I just want to say thank you, and it was great working with the department. I spent my whole entire time with one department, under one roof, and it was great. I miss it every day. The last week, on Monday morning, I started feeling like separation anxiety. It's really hard when you decide to retire. So, but I'm very thankful for for Sheriff Thompson, Sheriff Hill, for giving me the opportunity. And it was great. And now it's time for me to enjoy all these good things like we'll offer. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next we'll present retired Reserve Officer Greg Bryan. Many people don't have exposure to what it means to be in a law enforcement reserve position. It's certainly not there for the money or the economic stability or the job benefits or any of those things. Reserves do it really because their heart is in it. They do it because it's their heart's desire to serve their communities, and it's not about compensation, and they really don't even get caught up in those issues. And they're there because they love their communities, and they're willing to come out and sacrifice their personal time in addition often to their other full-time jobs, which is the case here with Greg. But with us today is retired Sheriff Curtis Hill, and I asked him if he would like to say a few words because he had a good amount of experience with Greg.
Thank you, Sheriff. I appreciate the offer and the privilege to come before your board today to talk about somebody that was very special to this county for a number of years. I'm going to start out by saying one thing, though, that, it's been about 10 years since I've been here at this podium. And so I can tell you that in the 22 years that I was in administration with the Sheriff's Office, under Sheriff Nyland and also as your sheriff, I stood at this podium many, many times, and I've got the scars on my back to prove it. So I want to talk about Greg Bryan today a little bit. Greg started in January 1973. So to put that in perspective, he's worked for 6 sheriffs in San Benito County's history. Goes way back, starting with John Cathy, Julian Medina, Robert Scatini, Harvey Nyland, myself, and Sheriff Thompson. That's quite an accomplishment just in itself. One of the things, too, that Sheriff Thompson mentioned about the uniqueness of being a reserve deputy sheriff and what that entails, it also entails his family and some of the things that they, I'm sure, dealt with during that time that he would leave the house with his badge and his gun, and his lovely wife, Linda, who's here today. We need to acknowledge her as well for her dedication to Greg's commitment to San Benito County as a reserve deputy sheriff. When I started in 1976, Greg was a grizzled veteran already. We had a very, very active cadre of reserve deputies. I remember they had a shooting team that used to compete around the state in firearms competitions. And this guy and some of the other reserves on that team were, let me tell you, they were really, really good. They had these green vests with all these patches of all these different shoots that they had won. It was pretty impressive. And that was just extra that they put into the effort as being good deputy sheriffs and being well trained in what they did. Greg was very, very active back in those days, as were the other reserves as well. But Greg stood out in the fact that he was capable and ready to work at any discipline within the sheriff's office. If they needed help in the jail, he was at jail. If they needed extra duty working, a large event, he was right there up front. All the different tussles we got into over the years at some of the different events, Greg was right there. I remember, for example, the old at the Saddle Horse Show in Rodeo, they used to have this Saturday night dance that was pretty wild. I can tell you, when I was in high school and college, I went out there 6 times. I never even went into the dance. I just hung out in the parking lot, and it was a good time out there. Greg's position was always working in the bar inside that pavilion. And if you haven't been hanging around a bar in a packed pavilion full of cowboys on a Saturday night, you need somebody in there that's got a steady hand and is able to mitigate issues, and Greg was that guy. He kept us out of a lot of soup just by his demeanor and his professionalism that he brought to the job. And that carried over for those 47 years that he worked for our agency. He had the demeanor that when he contacted people, they think he's a real deputy sheriff. And he was quite the example for the other deputies when we were starting up. Just if he was working with you, he brought that kind of demeanor to whatever situation that you were presented with. So it was a privilege for me to work with him. Greg, congratulations on your dedication to the people of San Benito County. Linda, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and again, I'd like to take the opportunity. I'm obliged to, be here, and appreciate the privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Hill, and thank you again for the many times that you answer the phone when I call and ask for guidance and a history lesson, and I appreciate your counsel very much and your presence today. Greg, my heart is with you. I started also as a reserve officer a few years after you. I didn't start until 1988, but I know what it's like to work for free and have the risks associated with the other people who get paid. And so my heart goes out to you. I've always appreciated your commitment, dedication to our office, and certainly your longevity and perseverance through many changing times. And I'd like to present you this plaque. I hope that you also would display this in a place of prominence and think fondly upon your years with us.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, that concludes our presentation, unless you should have comments or questions of your own.
No, just my only comments is thank you on behalf of the Board of Supervisors and the entire community for your 47 years of volunteering work and getting paid for nothing. That takes a lot. And then also, Elvia, thank you very much for serving at the office. You're both a perfect example of the type of employees we like to have in San Benito County. Thank you very much. Supervisor Patello?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been to a few of those dances and events that Reserve Deputy Bryan felt, you know, that security and the representation of you know, the county sheriff's office. And you've done an outstanding job, and we're going to miss you. Too bad you couldn't make it to 50. You know, but we understand, and you know, it's with a tremendous gratitude that we just can't adequately express. You did a fine job, and I'm sure everybody in the whole county knows you. And you know, I think, you know, with Ms. Gomez, it's experience that's hard to replace. You know, I imagine Sheriff Thompson is worried about the next person coming in. If it be half as good as you, we got a real diamond. But thank you very much for all your years. And the longevity means a lot to all our departments, and you gave it your best every day, and thank you very much.
Supervisor Medina?
I think so. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Hernandez?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's amazing to actually think that we would have two sheriffs in our boardrooms, which speaks to a lot of experience. And I think it honestly, with the presentation, it underscores the value that the sheriff department has in our community and preserving public health and the safety of our community members. So I mean, I know, I would imagine I echo the sentiment of the board that we support you in any way possible. The experience that you guys have carried to be able to be, you know, at the place to preserve public health or protect the well-being of our community residents, to me, it just highlights the importance of our agencies, our sheriff's department, our police department, and how valuable they are. And I, for one, stand 100% behind you. And I just thank you for the time that you put in to do just that, to protect our community.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you both to Curtis and Thompson. Thank you very much. We skipped.
Yeah.
We skipped on the agenda a little bit. Let's take a quick 5-minute break. Huh? Yeah, the recognition of posting of agenda. Continue our meeting. I skipped an item. Let's going to go to item B. That is, can I have a motion for certificate of posting? Acknowledgement.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All those in favor,
Aye.
say aye. Against?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
4-0.
Now we go to public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address the board on interest of items not appearing on today's agenda. No action may be taken per government section code. Do we have any speaker cards?
Members of the public who wish to speak on an item not on the agenda, please press star 9 or the raise your hand icon. Carol, please state your full name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Carol, please unmute.
We
Yes.
can hear you.
De La Cruz and Board of Supervisors. First time I've ever talked to you since I've been on the council. I just wanted to ask respectfully Supervisor Hernandez why he thought it was appropriate to be at a public political rally without a mask on. We have a city mandate. It says put the mask on. The people, they do what they're going to do, but I expect an elected official to follow the law. When we were sworn in, Supervisor Hernandez, we sworn in stating that we would obey all laws. So I wasn't quite sure what you were doing there without your mask on. It's hard enough to pass a difficult law, and it was tough on me. But then I got a supervisor, my supervisor, by the way, over there breaking the law at a political rally at the Kmart lot on Saturday. I respectfully ask you to abide by the City of Hollister law and apply your mask when you're out in public. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to you, and I wish you a good day.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Jackie, please state your full name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak.
Yes, good morning. Jackie Morris Lopez, District 2, San Juan Bautista. Good morning, board and chair. And I just want to agree with the last speaker, Ms. Lenore. My intention was to bring that up as a healthcare provider and also wanting to promote and keep our citizens safe. I feel that was very, very bad decision on Supervisor Hernandez's part to choose to break the law there at a rally. When you're an elected official, you're held to a higher standard. And as Ms. Lenore stated, you broke an ordinance, you broke a law. I also want to tag on to that same group of a campaign gatherers. It's their First Amendment right to say as they want and support whatever candidate they want. But when they paraded around the county courthouse at the polling site, that was a blatant violation of a federal law. And I don't know what's being done about that, but I think our county and our people are better than this. Like I said, we have a right to support whoever, whatever we want. But when you tread on those waters, I think people need to be held accountable. And when there is a supervisor, an elected official that you can link to that group, that's a bad look. Second comment is on my supervisor, Supervisor Botello, I understand, was alleged to be in violation of the FPPC Act by filming and taping an endorsement for a candidate that is running for his seat in front of a county logo in a county office. And the candidate himself posted that on his website. I feel that, once again, is a bad look. And I want to go back to what the chair spoke about maybe a month ago about what you all folks do on your own time in terms of promotion of propositions or candidacy or your political affiliation is your own business on your own time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
We have no more speakers via Zoom at this time.
Anyone from the public?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Board of Supervisors. Electioneering is prohibited within a 100-foot marker. You cannot express views or against a candidate or political party by wearing buttons, T-shirts, hats, or whatever else, or carrying signs. California Election Code Section 18370. No person on election day or any time that a voter may be casting a ballot shall, within 100 feet of the polling place, A, circulate an initiative, referendum, recall, or nomination petition, or any other petition. B, solicit a vote or speak to a voter on the subject of making his or her ballot. C, place a sign relating to voters' qualifications or speak to a voter on the subject of his or her qualifications. D, do any electioneering as defined Section 319.5, used in this section. 100 feet of the polling place means a distance of 100 feet from the room or rooms in which voters are signing the roster or casting ballots. Any person who violates any of these provisions in this section is guilty of a misdemeanor, California Elections Code 18370, electioneering of information for advocates for or against any candidate or measure on a ballot within 100 feet of a polling place. Prohibited electioneering information includes but not limited to any of the following. A display of a candidate's name, likeness, or logo. B, a display of ballot measures, numbers, title, subject, or logo. C, buttons, hats, pencils, pins, shirts, signs, or stickers containing electioneering information. D, dissemination of audible electioneering information, California Code Section 319.5. On Saturday, November 1st, Supervisor Peter Hernandez, under the title as a supervisor, represented himself at a rally. I'm good with that. But when he violated California Election Code Section 18370, he was representing the entire Board of Supervisors. He may have or could have been arrested. There may be a possibility that charges may go forward. Supervisor Peter Hernandez, there was barriers there, and Peter Hernandez went around the barriers, was stopped, so that because he had signs with him for a candidate. Unfortunately, I believe that Peter Hernandez did not know he was violating the law, did not know what electioneering is, otherwise Peter Hernandez would not have violated the law. I am requesting that the Board of Supervisors come back with a censure against Supervisor Peter Hernandez for representing the entire board as a supervisor, breaking the law, which is not.
Thank you. Do you have any other members of the public?
Richard Betancourt, 4140 Southside Road. I was in that rally. We never went near the courthouse. At least the group that I was in.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? I will close the public. Department head announcements? Is he all right?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we do have an announcement. We have Joe Paul Gonzalez on Zoom.
Good morning, Chair and Board of Supervisors. Today is Election Day. I want to congratulate and thank all the county election workers for all their hard work. They have put in so many hours, all in the name of giving great public service. Voters have really no idea how hard we work and how diligent we follow laws and procedures, all to administer a fair, transparent, and accurate election. However, I was asked to this morning to give give the board information as it relates to a complaint that was made by a few citizens, a handful of citizens, who had heard secondhand information that voters had been receiving 2 ballots. And I just want the board to know that those claims are unfounded, unsubstantiated, because my staff and led by my assistant clerk recorder, register of voters, Francisco Diaz, conducted an audit of not only of this polling location here at the main hall records office, but as we also audited the other 3 voting centers, which took quite a bit of time and took us off the true work that we're supposed to be doing. but I just want to report to the board that the number of ballots that we have received exactly equals the number of voters. So, you know, in terms of the other position that I hold as auditor controller, it's the same as a claim that money's missing, but there's been a cash count and all the money's there. So they're, you know, basically the claims are unfounded. I don't know why those claims were made. You know, whatever motivations they are, really, you know, it doesn't help the cause of keeping, you know, confidence in our election system. But nevertheless, to ensure that confidence, we devoted the time that was needed to conduct that audit, and I was very pleased that exactly as we have planned and worked for all these months and days, you know, to ensure that everything goes off accurately. It was proven by the results. And, you know, I'm here to answer any questions that the board may have.
Any questions to Joe Paul? No. No. Thank you, Joe.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
There are no other announcements, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ray. Now we'll go to board announcements. Supervisor Hernandez.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I wanted to clarify some things. I don't know why it's echoing. They always ask me to like unmute myself.
It is muted.
Okay, are we good now? Okay,
We're good.
awesome.
Go ahead, Peter.
So yeah, I wanted to clarify some things. That whole route that happened with the vehicles, it was on a road, and definitely there was some confusion. It was actually reconciled really fast because the elections department redirected that traffic. You know, I think the best way to frame an argument is to make sure that you put it in context. Otherwise, it makes out of context the reality, and to a certain extent becomes very deceptive and manipulating. And I think that's unfair and unright for the public to digest, right? Because by the presumptions that were created earlier with the dialogue, it pits this reality that isn't true. So the bottom line is, it was reconciled really quick. There was some confusion. The elections department redirected traffic. The sheriff's department was out there. It was never an intention. Like I said, the vehicles were on the road. There weren't people getting out of cars standing within 100 feet of people that were voting. And I know that firsthand because I had conversations with all the different agencies, including the sheriff's department. So, and then as far as what Councilman Lenore had mentioned, I've always, and I definitely don't want to make a mockery of my board, so I didn't go there representing the Board of Supervisors. I went as an individual, and correct me if I'm wrong, County Council, but I always have my individual freedoms to be able to represent my needs or my interests. Some people might disagree, but it doesn't change that reality. But either way, when it came down to that rally and the mask issue, I think Ms. Lenore should understand her own policies better. The guidelines themselves, I mean, we're directly have a relationship with public health, and they clearly have said, and she's going to speak after, so you could even ask her yourself when she speaks. But the rules say is outside, a mask is only required when you cannot 6-foot distance. So you don't have to have a mask. That's the rules. I think that's unfair that she framed it that way because it puts the public, again, in confusion. Because then you're going to have people walking around wearing masks by themselves when they're walking their dog. That's not true. That's just far from the truth. So I wanted to make sure that there's clarity with that. At that event, I didn't have a mask, but I was also with my wife the whole time. So I was within the group of my own family. And yeah, it's that simple. That the reality is when it comes to this whole event, people were in trucks. People were on top of their trucks. It's just not this simple picture painted. Now, if you don't agree with the reason why we were there in supporting our president, that's your right to do so, but to pit it otherwise and try to frame it as this negative thing, I think by default that creates a false narrative and divisive element. So that's why I think we need to make sure that we're clear that that in reality, it's funny because the biggest thing that I espoused when I spoke was our Constitution and the unifying element of our Constitution. I spoke towards unity. That was my desire. And everybody agreed. I mean, there was a lot of folks that were excited. There was people that not necessarily of the same belief system still were appreciative of those comments because they were very unifying. It had nothing to do with a divisive environment. I would hope that, if anything, the divisiveness that did come at the event was from the outsiders. That's what even the article spoke, from the folks that were standing outside and driving by with their fingers, flipping us off and stuff. But the dialogue, the common thread was, you do not respond that way. You do not respond with hatred. If people wish you harm, then you just ignore them, or you tell them, we wish you the best, but we're not gonna respond the way you do. So I thought they were very professional, these individuals that were out there. All they did is love their freedom and love their country. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So again, to clarify, but now getting to the board member reports, I actually did a tour of the elections office, so I appreciate Joe Paul speaking and clarifying that. I had questions about it. It's funny because there's been a lot of dialogue on Facebook about it. I haven't responded to any of that dialogue because it seemed confusing the way it's been framed. And I know that when I did the elections office tour with Francisco, so I really appreciate him willing to take the time to guide me through the whole thing, showing me the poll watchers and the people that are opening up the ballots and basically separating them, and then the new digital technology that they have. He literally took me from the front to the back and explained everything to me, and the fact that you can actually have a ballot that you got in the mail and still get a digital ballot. So I was assuming maybe that's the confusion, that you get a digital ballot and you enter in your, what you had, basically what your votes were. You could just enter in the ID of that ballot and it replicates on the digital screen, and then you just pretty much just copy the same thing and then it reprints, but it discards, from my understanding, the original, and it basically makes it void, so you're only voting once and it's tied to one person. So there was a lot of explanation through that whole process that gave me a lot more confidence. Nonetheless, there's still obviously possibilities of issues, and I've heard of other issues, and I recommend anybody who has issues to reach out to the elections department. I know they'd be more than happy to answer your questions, but I do appreciate Francisco being willing to take me through the whole process to explain it, to try to give me a greater sense of confidence that they have and they have cameras with even the ballot boxes, the ones that are out there. So there's this whole process of security that I appreciate. It sounds like that they're trying to do their due diligence to prevent it. Still is not going to be perfect, but nonetheless, their effort was there, and I thank them for that. I also did a behavioral health building walkthrough. I'm blown away by the amount of momentum they've gotten. I remember when we just broke ground, we had Supervisor Gilio out there with us, and we broke ground, what was it, in April? I think, April or May. And sure enough, now all of a sudden, they've gotten a lot of the pieces in place for this building to get finalized. So they've gotten a lot of momentum with that. And then I also wanted to give an update on our COG meeting. We're seeing a lot of good momentum with the building of 25. We're very supportive. The whole board is actually on the same page, which is, I think, pretty monumentous to make sure this project happens. And we do have a desire to make sure that that project gets finished, basically makes it across the finish line. And the last thing I just wanted to mention is our tourism committee update. I'm part of a tourism committee through the Chamber of Commerce. They're directly involved with the Parklet program. I personally wanted to thank the Board of Supervisors for their hard work and willingness to support me to make sure that we get some good things happening for our business community. So, the board, as you all know, we worked with the city and basically helped them with some grant funds so that they can finalize, basically so that they could do the work of the details of their program to implement a downtown beautification and parklet program. And they're now to the final stages of that project. I think within the next 2 weeks, you'll see parklets getting built. You'll see a newly revised downtown. And I know between the conversations I've had with Brett Miller, he's really grateful, and the council, for our support to make that happen. And that's a huge deal. And I think you guys really should pat yourselves on the back, because that's a monumentous thing for San Diego County as a whole to benefit. It's not just the city of Hollister. I think our county, and we also allocated some funds for San Juan to that same end. So those are my reports. Thank you for being patient with me, Mr. Chair and Board.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Supervisor
Peter.
Hernandez. Supervisor Patello?
Okay, yeah. First, I want to make sure people realize that this is probably the last meeting before Veterans Day, and so I wanted to point out the fact that Veterans Day is November 11th. We got to honor our veterans, thank their families, and recognize that a lot of the free speeches that even if you're not telling the truth on some of these folks, those rights were won by the sacrifices of our veterans. And hopefully I'm trying to work with the Veteran Administration Office to have some sort of recognition in our next meeting in November. The second thing I want to also kind of mention is that, we're elected as supervisors individually. We go out to a lot of events, we do things, and you're not a supervisor for 8 hours a day or sunrise to sunset. You're a supervisor from the moment you're elected till the minute you leave office. And, with that comes a lot of responsibility, and, people do hold us to a higher standard. And for the most part, the people I've served with have done their best to maintain that expectation. One of the public speakers during public comment implied that my endorsement of a candidate for my seat, Wayne Norton, was breaking a rule or a law from FPPC, and that is categorically untrue. As a supervisor, I have a prerogative and a right to endorse who I feel is qualified for my position, and that's what I did. And the setting I chose is the setting I chose, and it certainly did not break any rules or laws. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Patello. Supervisor Medina?
Yes, I do have something to say. Well, as we know, today is the election day. And I've had the opportunity to vote in 8 presidential elections. Yes, 8 times 4 is 32. I was 18, I'm 51 now. Today, it's a dismal day. There's so much fighting between propositions, between candidates, between the president and Vice President Biden. Our forefathers, if they saw what we're doing now, I think they'd be disappointed. We need to learn how to work together. I know it's not impossible. It seems impossible, but we need to try something different in our community, in the state, and the federal levels. I did post something last night late, and I just wanted to let everybody know that today we will officially find out what party, candidate, propositions, or measures possess the majority of the local, state, and federal votes. One side will win, and one side will lose. That old saying, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. In 2020, we have been through many ups and downs. We are fighting through a pandemic, fighting and recovering from wildfires throughout California and many natural disasters throughout our nation. We have always been able to put our differences aside and work together to do what is best for our city, county, state,
and country. Regardless of the outcome of today's election, let us all come together and support one another and move forward together. Regardless of what party, candidate, proposition, or measures are victorious, it's my choice, and I will rise above any incivility and work together. Even if I did not campaign for the winning party, the candidate, or the propositions, I commit to working with whoever is victorious to ensure that as your San Benito County District 1 representative, that I serve you and our community to the best of my ability. So please, when votes are put together tonight and there is a clear win or lose on a proposition or a candidate, let's have civility. Thank you very much, and God bless the United States.
Thank you, Supervisor Medina. I have no comments. We're going to go to consent agenda. Is there any of the items that the supervisors like to pull? Anyone from the public?
Members of the public who wish to pull an item, please press star 9 or the raise your hand icon. We have no comment via Zoom at this time.
Okay.
I'll move to approve the consent.
Hold on,
oh,
Supervisor Patello.
I'm sorry.
Elia,
What number?
number 6. Number 6? Okay.
You
number
want to
6.
pull that?
Yeah. Go ahead, Supervisor Patello.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll approve the consent agenda with the exception of item number 6.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries. Ms. Salinas? It was 7. That's okay. We will,
Can't do it now, sorry.
would you like to talk about 6? No? No, thank you. What's the pleasure of the board on number 6?
Move to approve item number 6.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries. Thank you. It's a fast-paced meeting. Okay. Now we will go to regular agenda, number 14. Trace, Ray?
Oh, I'm sorry, so I missed that. Were we going to pull item number 7?
No, because we approved it.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to be clear
Yeah.
and make sure for the record. Okay. Yes, so we have Tracy Belton on the line. We're going to be sharing with you a COVID update. Tracy?
Good morning. Just a brief update today. Not too much.
Actually, Tracy, you want to hold on 1 minute?
No,
Elia,
no problem.
Well, hold on a minute, please. Elia, I'll give you 2 minutes if you want to talk about number 7. We're not going to make any decisions, I think. We'll just hear your thoughts on 7. I think that'll be a fair assessment.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Thank you, Chair. I really, truly do appreciate that. I just want to bring up to the board that before, I know we have a problem with keeping and recruiting candidates for jobs within in the county, and I know that you're going through negotiations now. But when we know that someone's going to be retiring, we should be hiring, and I know it's difficult to find candidates, but in order to have this request to be able to pay her to come back, I think it's a great idea because we're losing someone with a lot of experience. But it's got to be a learning, there's got to be a learning, I want to say there's got to be a learning curve with the county of learning from this.
I think you got the wrong
That's
one.
the wrong one?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's on regular agenda, the item you want to.
Yeah.
Oh, I just saw the 183, it's 180, right?
Correct.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
All right.
It's 18, it's on regular.
Okay. And you have an explanation on the time.
We will go through it.
Perfect, thank
Go
you.
get some coffee.
All right, go ahead, Tracy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning.
Elliot.
So just a brief update. I don't have a lot to report out on COVID-19, but if you can advance to the next slide, please. So just wanted to remind everybody that we still remain in the red tier. Generally, our numbers get posted on Tuesdays, but CDPH reported to us that the blueprint tier assignments will be postponed by 1 day due to the election on today's date. The data will still run the same for the same 7-week period. We just won't get the data until tomorrow. And the governor will probably make the announcement at his press conference tomorrow morning or around noontime tomorrow. I just wanted to highlight that CDPH is continuing to see a concerning increase statewide on our numbers. They have increased as far as the positivity rate as well as hospitalizations and new admissions. They seem to be drifting up. So just a reminder to people to remember to follow the guidance. Remember to wear your face coverings, wash your hands frequently, and try not to gather. You know, we have also seen a slight increase in cases here in our county. You've all seen the daily numbers, and we've had some higher days. And I know that everybody's anxious to move to the orange tier, which is the next lower tier. But until we see a lower rate, we're not going to be able to advance to that orange tier. And we all know that we do not want to move back to the purple tier. We do not want to move to the widespread tier. And so we are continuing to monitor the cases. Public health is on the line, and they can answer any questions if you have any questions regarding the cases at the end of the presentation. But I just wanted to remind everybody that we are still in the red substantial tier. Next slide. Just wanted to remind everybody that we still have the free drive-up flu shots. Our next drive-up day is this Thursday, November 5th from 12 to 4. And then there's one on November 12th. So just a reminder to everybody to get their flu shot. Next slide. Dr. Gallarducci is on the call, as well as our public health staff. If anybody has any questions for them or myself, we're happy to try to answer them.
I typically allow the supervisors to speak first, but I think this is, I'm going to speak first because I think this is very important what I'm about to ask. And I'm going to steal a little bit of Supervisor Medina's comments of earlier under his report. And that is that after today, the coronavirus ain't going to be a big political issue. But for us local people, the health department, local elected officials, it's still on the plate. It's still going to be big. Tracy, do you feel that the state and the federal or the federal government will neglect us and say, well, it's not a hot political issue. I'm not going to worry about it anymore. This is something that local jurisdictions have to address on their own. Is that a fair assessment, Tracy, or do I still have faith in our federal and state government that they will continue to support us through these tough times that we're about to enter?
I feel strongly that we will continue to be supported. I don't see how they can ignore us during a pandemic. I don't know if Dr. G has any other words regarding that, or Lynn, but I feel strongly that we will continue to be supported.
Yeah, Dr. Gallarducci here. Thank you, Tracy. I completely agree. I think one of the things that we're learning from this is not something that can be handled at a local jurisdiction or even at a state level. This is nationwide. Actually, it's a worldwide problem, and it does require a unified approach. I think that's very clear. So I think we'll see that going forward. I hope to see that going forward, and I think that it's a problem that we all need to collectively come together and solve.
Thank you. Supervisor Patello?
I have no questions.
I can just add that this is Lynn Mello from Public Health.
Yes, Lynn, go ahead.
I can just add, we are working very closely with CDPH, and they continue to reach out to us. We have weekly monitoring calls, or bi-monthly monitoring calls now. We are working on laying down an infrastructure to receive vaccines when that time comes. So I feel like we're getting a lot of good support from the state, and I agree with Tracy and Dr. G.
Thank you. Supervisor Medina?
Nothing, sir.
Thank you. Supervisor Hernandez? Thank you. Public comments?
Members of the public who wish to speak on this item, please press star 9 or raise your hand icon. Courtney, please state your full name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon. My name is Courtney Evans. I'm just curious about the California Supreme Court ruling that the judge found good cause to issue a permanent injunction restraining the governor from issuing further unconstitutional orders. I'm curious where we go, what conversations lie with that. In addition, still curious on, we're asking the director of public health these questions and our public health officer that, everything that they're giving to us is from the governor. And, we're their chain of command, where our public health officer is employed and directed by the Board of Supervisors. And it's under my understanding that Ray Espinoza is Tracy Belton's direct supervisor. So just curious on those aspects of this ever-changing situation. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Loretta, if you can state your full name for the record, you will have 3 minutes to speak.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Are you asking me to speak? Because you're coming across very muddled.
Yes.
Oh, perfect, thank you. My name's Loretta Avina, and I was wondering, have you already covered item 3, human resources, with the person of Ina Lasco?
Edward, yeah, so Edgar Nolasco's item will be at the very end, last agenda item.
No, if they're already talking about.
Oh, item number
Okay,
3,
so
that's
you
already
haven't
been covered.
For that yet.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, again, you're coming over very muddled. What was it that you just said?
That item has already been covered through consent agenda.
When did that get covered? Because you guys are going so fast. Mr. De La Cruz, you're going very fast. When did that get covered?
About 15 minutes ago, under consent agenda.
So no person, no agency representative from HR spoke up and gave us any idea of what it was going to cost to bring back a retired person to do training. We have no information on that.
Number 18.
Madam?
Number 18.
Number 18, we're going to talk about that subject on number 18.
Oh, okay. Yeah, can you maybe slow down a little bit? Because you're speaking very fast, and we're not given an opportunity to really understand where you're at on the agenda. Or either that, or somehow it's coming up for us being on Zoom, it's coming across very muddled.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Welcome. I'll still be watching. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, madam. Next speaker.
We have no more speakers via Zoom at this time.
Anyone from the public? None? Okay.
Information, I think.
Barbara, you want to share with the board on?
Yes, I believe that the speaker referenced the case regarding Gallagher versus Newsom. I wanted the board and the public to be aware that that is not a Supreme Court level case. It's out of the Superior Court of the County of Sutter.
That has to do with a Corona item we're discussing. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and that is only a tentative ruling at this point in time.
Okay.
So it's not a final ruling, and it's at the Superior Court level. And so we'll wait and see what the final ruling is issued, and it's anticipated that that's going to be appealed to the Court of Appeals as well.
And then once you feel comfortable to come back to the board, you'll make a public presentation.
Yes.
Okay.
There's
fair
a
enough.
number of cases that are pending throughout California at this point in time.
Okay, fair enough. We got to make sure that we inform the public of some of these
Right, there's
cases.
been no decision that's affected our county yet at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We really appreciate those comments. Yes.
Barbara, you mentioned, yeah, that there's no, but in general, I mean, there still is an injunction which basically says that the governor can't write any new laws.
There's no injunction yet. It's a tentative ruling at this point in time. It could be changed within 10 days before the final ruling's issued. And even if that injunction's issued, I anticipate that it's going to be brought to the Court of Appeals. And it would not be binding upon our jurisdiction because it's a Superior Court decision from a different county. And there's been other decisions throughout the state. It's not going to get resolved. It's a kind of a long road to get resolved here. We're probably not going to have a final resolution until it's heard at the Court of Appeals or even a higher court. Because you could have competing different opinions from different Superior Court levels.
I get all that, but
Yeah,
in
and
general,
Yeah.
there's still, he can't do anything right now. Just
No.
the same that it's not final, the declaration says it's a temporary injunction that he basically can't write new laws right now, right?
No, there's no judgment right now. It's a tentative so that parties can respond to it. It's a tentative ruling. It's not a final ruling yet. There's no judgment in that case yet. So it's like an indicated ruling, and it's probably going to come out in that manner. I doubt that he's going to change his position, or she's going to change her position on that, so that case will be probably issued in that format. In 10 days, there probably will be a final ruling, but I don't believe that I suspect that it's going to be immediately appealed to the Court of Appeals.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get into the presumptions, but either way, can he write a law right now? Can he say, okay, well, in the meantime, I'm going to write a bunch of new laws?
Yes, there's no order at this present time. He's doing executive orders to alter the laws, and right now he could still do that because there's no order yet.
Do we need to put this item on the agenda? So
We
have a
can,
full-
and I could,
full-blown
I
discussion?
could do a brief about
And I
the.
haven't read it, to be fair, so.
Yeah, there's a number of cases pending, and I could kind of summarize the
Yeah.
various cases that are out
I
there.
think in the public's best interest and for Supervisor Hernandez, I think we should have a nice, healthy dialogue.
Okay,
and
sure.
Put it on the agenda.
Okay, that's fine.
We'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, and now we'll go to number 15.
You need an interpreter to read it, Peter.
I bet.
Item number 15, Ray or Dulce?
Hi, Board. So the next item, we are going to be updating the ordinance to reflect a change. Currently, as our ordinance is written,
There's an echo.
is it on here? Give me 1 second, let me see.
Mute that one right there. You were just at it. On the
Here?
left-hand side, bottom left-hand corner. There you go.
Oh, thank you. There we go. So, sorry about that. So our current ordinance, the way it's written, clerk of the board position is currently appointed by the Board of Supervisors, which was an item approved on consent agenda today. So this is to change our current ordinance where the appointment of clerk of the board will be done by the county administrative officer. So today, this item, I'm gonna read the title of the ordinance and for the record, and hopefully we'll continue it to the next board meeting. There is a second item that updates the job description to coordinate some typographical changes as well as the appointment by county administrative officer.
Mr. Chair, if I may as well, this is some cleanup language that we worked with at the board retreat 2 years ago when we were adjusting our policies and our ordinances, and this was one item that there was some contradictory language within it, and we didn't actually clean up this, so we want to clean this language up. Especially with the new hiring of our clerk, we came across this and want to get this cleaned up, so.
Okay.
Dulce?
We don't need to read it, right?
Do we formally have to read it for the record,
Yeah.
the title? So let me just read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the County of San Benito amending section 3.01.140 of chapter 3.01 of Title 3 of the Clerk of San Benito County Code relating to Clerk of the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, and then we'll open it up to the public.
Yep.
Do you have any speaker cards on the subject matter?
Members of the public who wish to speak on this item, please press star 9 or the raise your hand icon. We have no speakers via Zoom at this time.
Anyone from the public? None, I'll bring it back to the board. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'd like to make a motion per staff's recommendation.
Is, with the time certain, next meeting, November 17th? Do you accept that, Supervisor?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Item number 15 got approved. Now we'll go to item number 16. Barbara?
Okay, so, as a background to this item, earlier this year, the board took action to vacate the county roads within the Dunville subdivision. That's also commonly known as CSA 50. This action item has several parts before the Board of Supervisors today. The first part is a quitclaim deed to the corporation that's held by the homeowners. The homeowners formed a corporation, which is held equally by all the owners within the subdivision, and they currently hold the ownership to the parcel that holds the well. And they've requested to hold the ownership for the parcel that underlined the roads that were previously vacated by the board. The second part would be an easement back to the county for county purposes and also for drainage for the parcel of land along San Felipe Road, the 12-feet strip along San Felipe Road. The third part is the MOU with the county, which sets forth certain insurance requirements that requires DECPI to maintain insurance. So covering the road that, the quitclaim parcel A. In the backup for the agenda, it mentioned the easement would be amended to address the issues that had been raised during the vacation of the county road. That is on page 368. Instead of amending the first easement or the MOU, we added those terms to the, into a second MOU. I must note that on page 368, it lists eight areas that were reserved during the vacation of the county road. After discussion with county staff and residents, the MOU reserves 6 of those areas, but does not preserve the land, because it does not did not include the items number 2 and 7 that were listed on the agenda, because staff, with discussion with the county residents, determined the land is no longer used necessary for future public roads because it's surrounded by an agricultural parcel, so there's no chance for that parcel to be continued into future subdivisions, and that there's no need for present or future use of those roads that have been vacated for trails. So the provisions of 2 and 7 were not incorporated into the MOU. The second MOU is going to be placed on the consent agenda for the next board meeting, along which we were going to come back for a Prop 218 process at that time anyway. And we're not going to record the quitclaim deed or the easement until that occurs. This will allow those roads to be placed into the ownership of DECPI as if the subdivision had been formed with private roads, which is a possibility. Some subdivisions are formed with private roads, and that creates it makes this subdivision go back into that status, so it has totally private roads. Then the rest of the findings, there's just various findings related to that CEQA findings and the findings related to Parcel A. This is an expedited vacation of county property, sale of county property. We note that it's a quitclaim deed, it's not a grant deed. And also we verified with the assessor's office that it has less than $25,000 value on the assessment rolls, so it can, it's eligible for that expedited process. In fact, it has a $0 for assessed value because of the road that's on top of it. And that the parcels were allocated to the surrounding parcels, the assessed value. I'm open for any questions, if you have any on this issue.
I actually do have some questions, Barbara.
Yes.
First question is, I know they're gonna have to have insurance maintained. How do we, and I'm gonna put my private business experience to the table right now, how do we know that they're gonna have, their insurance is not gonna renew? Are we gonna get renewals every year when their insurances gets renewed? Is that gonna be forwarded to somebody, and then we're gonna have somebody at the county level that's gonna say, check mark, it's good for the next year?
We could ask for that. Don't know whether we'd have to set up a checks and balances. I mean, we do the yearly fee. Somebody's gonna have to note that to request that, though.
Yeah, and then the other one is, I just don't feel comfortable having a limit up to $250,000, because anything above that, it's a share proportion between the county and the homeowner association. But I don't see, if we're gonna give roads away, going from public to private and be gated, then they should be 100% insured. The county should not be insured. And I know that I know that the county does some maintenance work through the CSA and Prop 218, but still, because we do that, do we also have that same relationship with all the other CSAs where they all provide an insurance too?
I see this as almost like a benefit above what the other CSAs give, because basically, normally if we do the work and there's a dangerous condition of the property, somebody's gonna bring probably a cause of action against the county, and there would be no indemnification. Here, they're indemnifying the first $250,000.
Right.
Even if it's our fault, that they're gonna be covering at least the first part of it. And that is a benefit to the county because it takes it up to our self-insured, out of our self-insured retention limit. So above that, it's only due to proportional fault, as far as, I mean, it's divided by fault. So in order for the liability to come back on the county, it would have to be our fault to basically have the liability come back on the county. So the first $250,000 is kind of a benefit on top of what we would have on the other subdivisions.
Okay. Supervisor Medina?
This happened to falls in my district. I've been working on this for the last 2 or 3 years. So this is nothing new. This is something that we covered most of these things. One of the things is, when you say the word give, we're not giving anyone anything. They're accepting the roads and they're maintaining them. So that's a benefit to the county. It's
That is.
it's a benefit. So that's what I just want to make sure we understand, that we're not just giving them the road and where we're doing something. They are taking ownership. They will take care of these roads. We won't have any skin in the game. So that's, to me, it's a win-win.
They take liability too?
Yes.
That concludes your report, Supervisor?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Let me open up to the public. You have a speaker card?
Members of the public who wish to speak on this item, please press star 9 or the raise your hand icon. We have no speakers via Zoom at this time.
Anyone from the public?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Elia Salinas. So I have a question. Once this becomes, and it's not that, it's just an entrance, which is, it's not that long, and then there's the driveway down there, so it's not a lot. But once this gets approved, I'm assuming that it's going to become a gated community?
Yes.
Right? So where does the gate start on San Felipe Road itself?
Back a little ways.
So Supervisor Hernandez's question was, are they taking 100% liability? They're not taking 100% liability. They're only covering the county's part. And I can all I'm saying is, I'm always a Debbie Downer. A fatality along that road is more than $250,000. So maybe $250,000 is not enough, because as Supervisor Hernandez says, they're not taking 100%. So we have to protect ourselves, the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public?
The old planning commissioner.
Ray Pierce, I'm at 4140 Ashford Circle. Okay, so 15 or 16 years ago, Barb probably remembers, it was a county roadway. It was actually given back to the association. We gated it. Our gates are set back, compliance to planning on a certain number of stacking to allow cars to come in so you don't have issues with accidents. We have paid to maintain our insurance and our roadways for the last 16 years at no cost to the county. So if you're looking for the poster child, we're it. And it's worked quite well for both us and you guys. Any questions? No?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? None, I'll bring it back. Supervisor Benito, Ms. Selena said where's the gates gonna be at? Closer to the public road?
Further back.
Further back?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'd like to make a motion per staff's recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries 4-0. We're gonna take a quick 5-minute break. Ray and Barb, I need to talk to you guys.
Yeah. It's like Mr. Pierce said, they have it, so it says it's stacked up.
Hearing number 17, receive an informational presentation from the County Librarian of San Benito County Free Library. Nora, hello.
Is this on? Good morning, board members and members of the public. I'm Nora Conti. I'm your county librarian, and as usual, it is a pleasure to serve you. This year, we're going to go through a lot of information rather quickly. It is an annual report for 2019-2020, but it is also a pictorial type of review as well, because we want to continue to build the pictorial history of our library. And we're going to be highlighting a couple of things and exciting things that we were able to accomplish through grants and through partnerships. We will start with the customer service statistics, which Aaron will present to you.
As Nora mentioned, my name is Erin Baxter, and I'm here to present you with the customer service statistics for the library. And as you can see here, we're giving you 2016 through the present 2020, and the reason for that is we wanted to give you some sort of context and a perspective on how the utilization of our services and resources has increased over the years. And 2016 is a significant year because the year before that, the San Benito County Free Library was the first library in the state of California to apply for a CNIT grant. And the improvement of the library's broadband internet connection as well as our Wi-Fi was completed at the end of 2015. So in 2016, that really began the building of our library's technological infrastructure, and therefore a lot of improvements to our services. So as you can see here, there's been a steady increase in checkouts of our physical items like books, DVDs, magazines, etc. over the years. And it's increased from 85% from 2016 to 2020. Checkouts of our e-resources like ebooks, audiobooks, streaming videos, anything that's available on the website has increased 356% since 2016, and that's quite a lot. And that's due in part to the technological infrastructure that I mentioned in the slide before. And as you can see, there's a very sharp increase from last year to this year, and that's due a lot to the pandemic, shelter in place. Although our library was physically closed, people were still able to check out e-resources the whole time throughout the pandemic, and so we saw a lot of utilization of that. Again, an increase over the years of card holders, and again, we saw a very sharp increase this year in card holders to the library, and that's because even though bookstores were closed, a lot of physical locations were closed due to shelter in place, the library, even though our facility is still closed, it's always been open to the public, virtually. So again, even when people couldn't buy books at bookstores or Amazon was slow, they could always get their e-resources, their e-books, their audiobooks at the library. And again, you see a steady increase of library visits throughout the year. And even though our physical location was closed for 3.5 months almost 8 months now, we still had an increase in library visits from last year to this year. So people are still using our resources like crazy. They're still coming into into the building like crazy. And although we weren't able to offer as many classes and programs as we were last year, you can see that program and class attendance has still increased from last year to this year, and it's increased steadily from 2016 to 2020. Website visits have increased steadily over the years. We see another sharp increase from last year to this year, and again, that's due to our technological infrastructure. The staff has been able to receive technological training, and it's been given us the ability to constantly improve our website, constantly reevaluate the resources that we're providing via the website, and and we've seen lots of students especially using our educational resources. We've seen an increase in computer users over the years, and possibly most importantly, an increase in Wi-Fi users over the years. Our Wi-Fi is available both inside the building and outside the building. It's available 24 hours a day, so people who don't have an internet connection at home can sit outside the library, even now in their cars, and use that connection. And that wraps up our statistical data for the year, so I'm going to pass it back over to Nora.
Thank you, Erin. So we're going to hurry along here. As Erin is presenting the different slides, I'll be talking to you. We have a very active youth services component to the library, which reaches out to our young children in the areas of literacy, as well as STEM programming, as well as family holidays. Our youth services, there's 19,764 library card holders. Our teen services are very valuable to us because they help us to provide services to the public by being volunteers. On the next page, you'll see the active volunteers that they come in and teach the other teens or younger children regarding STEM. This was a project for building a structure using spaghetti and marshmallows, and the kids really enjoyed that. Our teens were there and available to help them. We're very fortunate in San Benito County because our kids love to read. They have a curious mind and they enjoy reading materials. We appreciate that. On the next slide, you see adult services. Here we focused when State Senator Ana Caballero came to visit our library and visited with stakeholders. And also on the following slide, you're going to see where the community got together because we wanted to celebrate the first 100 years of library services to the community. Adult services also has a strong component of adult literacy and emergent literacy. This is a member of one of the individuals that came to one of our programs and successfully completed her citizenship. In the areas of revenues, this year was quite interesting because collectively, as you can read down, there's the highlights. The library was able to bring in $500,000 on an in-kind contribution from PG&E, a PG&E partner, and $1 million, a little bit over $1 million in other areas of grant writing and fundraising. On the following slide, let's go back real quick, Erin. Let's go back. Mm-hmm. If you see this vehicle, this is going to be going out into the community with hotspot in it because where individuals will be able to access. This is our vehicle that we were able to get fully loaded and to be able to present services, so that we're not able to do that now, but through a grant funded through the state library, this vehicle, as soon as things get better, will be out on the road as well. The following is a listing of all of our library community partners. And then with that, we're down to the area of focus that we wanted to do. We had a partnership with PG&E, and it's called Architecture Zero. Many, many, many individuals all over the world got to see about our community and our library needs and came up with an art for us to take a look at, not to copy or emulate or anything like that, but to just take a peek into the future. Erin?
Okay.
This is Margie O'Driscoll.
Here, I'll just do.
Margie O'Driscoll, and I'm a new friend to the university. I live in
That one works better.
zero net energy ideas for a new library for the people. This competition was organized
See, give me 1 second. See if we can figure this out.
As they're working on the video, I'd like to also say that the report will be available on the website if you would like to visit it. This very same presentation is actually is an hour-and-a-half presentation, which goes into depth of all of the different structures for libraries that were submitted and the winners as well. We cut it down to 7 minutes, and we're going to cut it down to about 2 minutes because we want just to give you an overview of how wonderful the partnerships have been for us, and we continue to use community partners to help us, the library, extend our reach out into the community.
And there was a hum of orderly activity. Hi, my name is Margie O'Driscoll, and I'm a new friend to the people of San Benito. I live in San Francisco and recently organized the Architecture at Zero competition that developed zero net energy ideas for a new library for the people of this county. This competition was organized by PG&E and the American Institute of Architects, California. I'll admit it, I'm passionate about libraries. I served as the director of the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library for 5 years, so I know firsthand the power of libraries in communities. I was awestruck when I visited your library for the first time about 2 years ago. On that fall Friday morning, every seat was filled, and there was a hum of orderly activity that felt comforting and organized. When I sat down with the library team, I was amazed at the diversity of services and connection to real needs in the community. Don't tell my friends in San Francisco, but there's a lot we could all learn from you. Your library is an essential service, and the services it provides are needed now more than ever. Today, I speak to you in the midst of one of the most turbulent periods of my lifetime and yours. The COVID-19 pandemic has swept away so many loved ones and upended life for every single person. Schools are closed, businesses are closed, and people are hurting. Yet we know that this turbulent time will end. We just don't know exactly when that will be. Although the idea of a new library may seem far-fetched in this moment, in light of the suffering which surrounds every Californian, and indeed everyone in the world, I urge you to hold fast to the dream, the opportunity of a new library to serve the 21st century needs of the people of San Benito. Thank you.
Board members, members of the public, this competition was held and was divided in two components, the professional component and the students. And we're just going to show very quickly the different pictures that are available on the website.
Okay, so this is the Architecture at Zero website, and if you want to view the whole hour-and-a-half presentation, you could click here to view the winners announcement. But we're going to go straight to 2020 winners, and here's where you can see all the pictures and the documentation for each one. So this is the first place professional winner. It's the Book Garden. It's by Jensen Architects in San Francisco, California. And if you click on these links at the bottom where it says entry documents, you can take a look at more pictures of each building, building plans, etc. This is the winner of the Merit Award, Community Currents by Murphy, Burnham, and Buttrick Architects in New York. And again, it's got a link where you can view the entry documents. And this is the Citation Award winner. It's called The Branch by Dialogue. It's out of Vancouver and San Francisco and Oakland. And then we move on to the Student Awards. And this is where you can see that the competition was truly global. The Merit Award goes to Gather out of Turkey. And again, you can there's a link to the entry documents. The Merit Award goes to Atrio Creep from Poland. And another merit award for Meraki out of India. And again, entry documents, it takes you to a Google Doc that has a whole bunch of other pictures.
When we first shared the contest winners, there was over 150 individuals that attended, and we've been receiving requests. That's why we've decided that we wanted to cut it down for other individuals that would like to see it, and it will be on our website. That is our presentation. I hope that it wasn't too long, but we wanted to present it to you. Though it has been very trying times, I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for your leadership, for your support of the library, for helping the library staff to continue to serve the public. And I very much want to thank our CAO, Reyes Vanoza, for his leadership and guidance in the area of technology, which has helped us to reach out to the community and provide service. I often think, just think, if the board or CAO would not have allowed us to go further in technology, what would we have done? So I am so pleased, so happy that the board has supported us as well as our CAO. Happy holidays to all of you. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me, or if you'd like to call me later and ask me questions, then I'll be really happy to speak with you.
Okay, thank you, Nora. Any questions? No, thank you, Nora. Let me open up to the public. Do we have anyone from the public? Go ahead, madam.
Hi, my name is Ann Hall. I live at 461 Fifth Street, which is directly across from the library. I'm actually here about something else, but I found the library presentation interesting, and I am a supporter of the library. However, I have talked to the library a couple times about the Wi-Fi being on 24 hours, and previously I was told that was a mistake. It was only supposed to be on when the library was open, so it was a little bit of a surprise to hear that it is meant to be on 24 hours. Having it on 24 hours does attract interesting people. Some people, are using that Wi-Fi. We've had issues in the past where we've had people basically living in their cars in front of my house, getting in fights at 2 in the morning. The big attraction is the Wi-Fi across the street. I've also had conversations with Supervisor Dela Cruz. That whole that whole block is county offices, which means they're empty at night. And it is a very attractive place for the homeless population that's currently coming out of Dunn Park, and other people, like I said, living out of their cars. If the county wants 24-hour Wi-Fi at that location as a feature, that's certainly your choice. But, the impact on people who live in that area is that you're attracting people to a block that has no supervision at night. And it's not an ideal situation. So I just want to point that out, that you need to be aware that you're encouraging perhaps behavior that you don't want to encourage in that particular location. So that's my comment.
Thank you for your comments, Ann.
Members of the public who wish to speak on this item, please press star 9 or raise your hand icon. Elvia, if you can state your full name for the record, you will have 3 minutes to speak. Elvia, if you can unmute yourself. Susan, if you can state your full name for the record, you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Is it my turn?
Hold on, Susan.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't hear who was being next. I just want to say good morning, board. My name is Susan Logue. I'm a Hollister resident. I'm also president of the Friends of the San Benito County Free Library. Board, I want to thank you for your service to our community. We really appreciate your continued commitment to the San Benito County community. So thank you so much for that. I'd also like to thank and recognize Nora, Aaron, and their whole staff continuing to reach out with creativity and expand the library services. This particular recognition with Architect to Zero through PG&E, this competition was pretty tough, and San Benito County Library was picked as a possible site. And so to see the drawings is really, really interesting. They're very in tune with climate needs and in regards to public needs. And I believe they even took in air circulation, ventilation, as COVID became a part of a problem. So I really have to say the Architect is exciting, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
We have no more speakers via Zoom at this time.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. And this is more of a presentation. Thank you, Nora. We appreciate, actually, I really appreciate Ann Hall's comments to the board and Ray. See if we can work with the city on how we can address some of the issues, what Ann Hall was saying.
Will do.
All right, thank you, we appreciate it. Okay, now we'll go to the next one. Item number 18, Eggert.
Sorry, just reminded you.
Good morning. I haven't been able to say that in a long time.
Yeah.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Today before you is a resolution for your consideration to bring back a retired annuitant, Cathy Postigo, in our COG department. Once AB 340 was passed in 2012, as part of AB 340, retired annuitants that come back to the job within 6 months of retirement need special authorization and permission from the governing body. And today before you is for you, the board, to consider to bring back a retired annuitant, Cathy Postigo, that just recently retired, to come back and train her successor at COG. And I'll open it up for any questions.
My question, and in fairness, I did talk to Ray about this last night and this morning, and this is more for the public. Why are we bringing this person back, and why couldn't it have someone in-house training this new person? Do you want to explain why?
That specific question, I'll leave that up for Mary from COG, and I believe she's on the line to answer those specific questions.
Okay. Mary?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Thanks for having me here today. I guess I could address that. So COG, as I think most of you know, we have a very detailed kind of plan that we work on, and we want to make sure that we have the best training available. We have a small staff. There are only 7 of us in the office. And so in order to save money, or to be more responsible with our funds, we've only had 1 fiscal position filled for several years. So Cathy had worked at COG for 16 years. She has a very specialized knowledge of the work that we do and the requirements of what we do. And she's really the best person to train that will be the most effective for us.
And this time, this was 90 days, I think. There'll be enough time for this new person to be trained?
So I think the 90 days is more related to the PERS requirements, and Edgar can probably address that, but we don't anticipate that length of time for this part-time temporary work that we're asking her to do. It would just be for,
Sure.
I would not guess that, before or by the end of the calendar year, we would consider it closed out, basically.
And you're hiring a full-time replacement for Cathy, correct?
Yes, we have hired a full-time replacement, and just due to the way that, timing worked out as far as having to give notice at a previous employer, they weren't able to start until last week. And so there was only, a few days time to kind of get oriented on everything. And that's why we'd like Cathy to be able to have a little bit more time to help with that. And then also we're finalizing our fiscal audit, and her expertise and her past experience and always having a clean fiscal audit is going to help us through at the end of the fiscal year while our new person is getting trained.
Perfect. Supervisor Medina?
Yes, I usually defer to the questions first and then I speak, but I just wanted to bring this up in public session before I heard anyone else's comments. You know, this is not uncommon in the private sector. When you look at something, it takes a while to bring someone on, to onboard them, to actually recruit them, and then to bring them up to speed. You know, some of the questions that I had, or people asked me throughout the week, was, is this a specific position that needs to be trained, and is it I look at it as an accounting role, almost delegation of segregation of duties. So it's a specific job, and not everyone in that office has access to do that, or it would be, you wouldn't have your segregation of duties. That's the first thing. The second thing was dealing with what's it costing the county. It's going to cost the county how many months or how many weeks she's on board, but in the long term, it's going to save the county because this person will be trained properly. What happens a lot of time is when people enter into a new role and they aren't trained properly, they make mistakes. And it's a catch-up. It takes a while for them to learn all the different ins and outs of that business or that job. So I'm looking at it as we are asking her to come back to train this individual. And in my opinion, I don't see an issue with that. And that's what I wanted to let everyone know.
Thank you, Supervisor Medina. Supervisor Patello?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Supervisor Medina, and having served on COG for 15 years and trying to understand the flow of revenues and expenses and the money between the different agencies and the audits. Cathy was the only one that did that work in that office, and she was really good at it. The audits were clean, and I never questioned any of her work. We never ran into any problems or issues. I think it's absolutely very prudent to have her train her successor. And, you know, I'm kind of surprised this is even on the regular agenda to even talk about, but this is a no-brainer in my book. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Patel. Supervisor Hernandez?
I just had a question. I asked it to County Council and Ray a little bit, which it's just more along the lines of understanding how things work when it comes to succession planning, because I know that we've talked about it. You know, in my imagination, the perfect opportunity would be when you know someone's going to retire, that you're already getting someone trained before they leave. That way there isn't that pulling them back in. And so I'm not opposed to it, but I feel like maybe there should be dialogue, maybe going forward, about what that means to have succession planning, or maybe funding specific for these kind of instances, so you don't have to do this again. Those are just my thoughts. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And I'll speak as a fellow supervisor here for 16 years, and I'll allow Ray to speak too on it. And Supervisor Patello will understand, every time we come across these type of events, we always ask those questions, and the answer is always, well, we're not like any other county where they could have 2 or 3 deep, and they could just roll into that position, or they can do cross-training. The money just ain't there, and the number of employees aren't there to do that type of activity, which is perfect. A corporate structure where someone retires, there's a slide into that position. Unfortunately, we're not deep. We're not ready. We're not as competitive as other counties, and a lot of our good employees that tend to use San Benito County as a training ground, and this is the results of these types. And I do agree with both Supervisor Patello and Medina, is that Cathy knows her stuff. This new person is being trained by the right person, and It's not gonna be the whole 90 days, I imagine, but it's gonna be enough for the new person to come in and be trained.
Yeah, that makes sense, Mr. Chair, and I'm not disagreeing with the rest of the board. I'm totally fine with the item. I'm just thinking is if we already know the person's retiring, it's not even about being 2 or 3 deep. Succession planning, in my mind, means also budgeting, where that budget says, okay, we know Cathy's leaving, so why don't we use that budget now to actually get someone hired, or maybe even presume that they're gonna leave, maybe give yourself 6 months leeway, and then say, okay, now we're gonna enact that budget to basically get that other person in line, so now the training starts happening before Cathy retires.
Right.
Yeah, it's, at times it can be very complicated, Supervisor Hernandez, just as an, FYI on that. When you budget, sometimes you don't plan for a retirement, and then the retiree, potential retiree comes and says, hey, I'm retiring in a month from now or 2 months, so you didn't budget for that. And the other part of that is when you actually, you have an FTE count, it's approved by the boards, approved by you have so many FTEs, you can't have two or three, beyond that. At times you have to go back to the board. And a lot of times for assurances, we wait till the person's retired and then take that on, because we are only 1 deep and we have only so much funding. That's a little bit of the complexities that we have as a small rural county. But we've been doing internally with our county, we have gotten board approval from you to allow a greater overlap in training. So we've been able to do that a little bit more, especially if we're aware of that. So we do have regular department head meetings that we discuss this with the department heads. Is there going to be any future retirements? But there's sometimes we just are not aware of it, and that happens at times. So.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Let me open up to the public. You have any speaker cards?
Members of the public who wish to speak on this item, please press star 9 or the raise your hand icon. Loretta, please state your full name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, thank you so much. This is Loretta Avina, and thank you for the information. That was very, very informative. Mr. Botello, it may be a no-brainer to you that this is on the agenda, but for us taxpayers, it really is enlightening and informative to know where our money is going. So I appreciate knowing that this is happening, and I would like to have an idea of what this is going to cost us to bring Cathy on board for, I think you guys said about 90 days, 3 months, something like that. And it would be nice to kind of have an idea on the dollar figure. And then what I would find as an HR manager, whatnot, that would be very proactive moving forward, if this should happen again, someone retire, would be to have some sort of a manual outlining the detailed responsibilities of this position, specifically since you only have 1 FTE in this job. And assuming that you don't have advance notice, or the little advance notice that you had, which was a couple of months, that would help maybe in training, and maybe perhaps not have to bring on another retired person again at taxpayer expense to train another person. I find that in the private sector that there are manuals and training like that you can default back on. So that's a suggestion to be made to the HR manager. Other than that, thank you so much for the information.
Thank you, madam. Edgar, you want to respond?
Chairman, you want me to answer that?
Yes, please.
Cathy Pasillo will be she will be an hourly rate of $45, and no other benefits will be afforded to her as if any other employee. So folks that are coming back as retired noonies, by law, cannot receive any other benefits other than the hourly rate, and they must get paid the same hourly rate as their duties were assigned in her previous life and as an active employee. If what we're just dealing with today is just the waiving of the 180-day waiting period. If COG would wait the 180 days, this wouldn't be in front of your board today. It's just to expedite the 180-day waiting period today.
Okay, thank you, Edgar. Any other speaker cards? Elia?
Elia Salinas, thank you. Whoa. Supervisor Hernandez, I completely agree with you. We need to be prepared with this. When good leadership in corporations, and it should be in the county as well, as you prepare for someone who's not going to show up tomorrow because they got in a car accident or they died. And we've seen it happen. Cross-training, I don't understand why you can't cross-train, and you keep saying that you're not that deep. But in leadership in corporations, and it should be within in a department within the county, is that you have so many employees, and you should be able to cross-train employees. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to. And if it has to do, I know you're a government employee, and you've got a list from A to B, and those are the ones that are very well known to say, it's not my job, and they don't touch it. And they can get away without having to do it. It also has to do with the fact that there's a lot of people, some people just don't have the drive to want to learn more. That's on them. So this is just to bring her back for a certain period of time. I'm not saying that the person who they hired is not competent, but what happens if this person doesn't pass their probationary period and we have to, they have to hire another person? Do we have to go through this hearing again? Or is this open up to waive the 180 days for the next year? It's just, so let's say she doesn't pass probation in 6 months, which is 180 days, and we're doing it. So that's going to be able to, you don't have to come back again. Is this person coming back as a contract person? You're saying she's come back in as an employee, but if there's no benefits and it's a contractor, it is more economical. I come up here all the time and I say that I'm tired of the county going out and you get contractors to do the job of what we should be hiring, and it's cheaper to hire employees than it is to get contractors. There should be the opportunity now. I know that you have a list of how many years so many employees, each employee has been here. So you can anticipate that someone's coming close to retirement. You can have a conversation with them. It's not violating anything, to see what their plans are, so you can start planning ahead of time. But that's the thing, is we need to recruit people in the county. We need to pay the people competitive wages so they can stay in the county. But more than anything, I think you should be able to look in the departments to be able to cross-train when someone is sick or someone is out or someone gets in a car accident or somebody passes away. There's a deadline, and sometimes those deadlines are not voided because someone is ill. It still has to happen. So who's the backup person? And each department should be taking a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Edgar?
So some of the comments member of the public made, Cathy Pasigo is not a contractor. She's an extra help retired annuitant. She's an employee of the county. The only difference is she is extra help and a retired annuitant, bounded by 960 hours of fiscal year. I don't believe the department anticipates using all those hours. Very few little of those hours, and whatever hours she does work, she's not afforded any benefits and is paid an hourly rate. When it comes to cross-training, I think the county and administration with Ray's leadership, we do promote as best as we could. However, there are some restrictions when it comes to labor, folks without a class pay and working people out of their job descriptions is illegal within the civil service rules for our county.
Thank you for saying those comments, because I was about to say that, so thank you. Mary, quick question. How much time do you predict that you're going to be utilizing Cathy to train this new employee?
Again, I'll reiterate that it's both training and our fiscal audit, which is coming up through the end of the calendar year. So it's not just training a new employee; it's also assisting us. So it's really money that we may have been spending on a consultant to complete the audit. Instead, we're having a person who's familiar with our finances do that for us if this is approved. Yeah. And so through the end of the calendar year is what we anticipate. And also a reminder, just for the public's knowledge too, that COG is not a county department. We're a separate agency, and we contract with the county for human resources. And appreciate the assistance we're getting on this item today.
Yeah. And it's an accountant, right, that we're hiring, correct?
This is an administrative services specialist
accountant
position, and Yeah, it's our finance,
Yeah.
all the finance duties for the
Yeah,
the agency.
And the reason I say that is because I myself am a controller for a small company, and for me to bring a replacement for me, we're looking at maybe 2 to 3 to 4 billing cycles for that new person to really understand the ins and outs of language, the terminology, how things work within an organization. So you need a couple cycles to really get a full hands-on for any new person to really become an effective, because otherwise, like Supervisor Medina said, you're gonna skip something. You're gonna forget to cross the T and dot the I, and next thing you know, we're owing $10,000 instead of somebody owing us $10,000. So I understand, and I also understand from Ms. Salinas' perspective, and we have good leadership with Ray and Edgar that we're working the best we can, but we have limitations like labor contracts, other things, the finances, it's just an array of issues that just doesn't allow us to utilize full cross-training and have people roll into those type of positions. We wish we did. We wish we did. But we don't. Any more comments? Supervisor Botello?
Yeah, I really liked how you answered that, Chairman De La Cruz. Cross-training, I think there's a tremendous value to that. But this particular position, if you know anything about COG, is a very specialized position. And, I imagine our department it has familiarity of it. But when you drop off in that small department, that agency, you got planners. And it's just not their forte. These are, Cathy is an accountant, and there's complexities to COG that is just unbelievable. And I think even if you were too deep, you would want the head person as they're stepping out to, train. But we're not too deep in that area, and can't be. So this is a kind of a unique situation, and I appreciate some of the comments from the public. We should be looking into that. We have talked about it for years, and we have made great strides in the county for staffing and succession planning. We talk about that all the time here, and we've moved forward with that and developed our staffing towards that for the most part. This is a unique situation and a unique person.
Thank you. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion for a staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Good discussion.
Mr. Chair, is it possible to take a 5-minute break before the
Sure.
next agenda?
Yeah, no problem. All right, we'll take a 5-minute break. Good job, Anthony. Public hearing number 19. Who wants to start off?
Good. Am I on here? Yes, I am. Good morning, members of the board. I'm Joel Ellenwood, the Assistant County Counsel representing the Resource Management Agency. The director of the agency, Benny Young, is here, and online we have Daryl Boyd, who's the planner for this project. Last night we sent the board a memo and a preliminary report that the board requested that we obtain from Earth Systems Pacific. And Brett Faust, who prepared the report, is available on the line. The memo recommended that the item be continued to allow further study that Earth Systems preliminary report recommended to evaluate the potential risk of slope subsidence landslide from the slope below Pond 6 that would potentially adversely impact county property, namely the migrant farm worker housing project and other housing facilities below Pond 6. We've had some discussion with the applicant today, and they have provided us with a letter from Daryl Drewlander, the general manager of the Sunny Slope County Water District, dated October 27th. And I understand Mr. Lander's online also. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. It appears as though the district is able to serve this project and other future projects without using either ponds 5 or 6. And if there is a satisfactory agreement between Sunny Slope Community Water District, County Water District, and the county, that's the case until such time as we can evaluate the potential risk from ponds 5 or 6, then we would recommend that be a condition of approval, and we could go forward with this matter today. We hadn't reached a final agreement with the applicant about that condition, so I think it'd be appropriate first to hear from Mr. Faust presenting his report so everybody fully understands what the issues are, and there can be questions answered about that. And then hear from Sunny Slope about their willingness to enter into such an agreement with the county, and then we could proceed with the rest of the hearing from there. That would be my recommendation. So if we could have Mr. Faust be added as a presenter so he can present his report. Thank you.
Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up to the public hearing process and allow Mr. Fash to speak and give him a little bit more time than the typical 3 minutes. So we can have a consistent an opportunity with, have Mr. Felcher and then the San Benito County Water District speak. And then if the board members have questions, we'll go into questions and answers, and then we'll start.
I would request that the chair waive the time limits. Certainly, Mr. Faust's presentation is part of a staff presentation.
Yes, I'm going to do that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, yep, I'm going to do that. Okay, I'm going to open up to the public and waive the time limit to the applicant.
Members of the public who wish to speak on this item, please press star 9 or the raise your hand icon.
Actually, no, we're going
Mr. Faust.
to allow Mr.
Faust. Yeah.
Let's say it again. Mr. Faust, speak first.
Hello. Hello, council members.
Supervisors.
Just a small background. This report that was completed last night is a preliminary report and really just represents a study of existing available reports and our evaluation of the existing landforms, as well as any local knowledge that we'd apply to our opinion about the project, about the Pond 6. Essentially, Pond 6 hasn't been used. It doesn't appear that it's been used for, I don't know, 10, 15 years, at least not that I can really find on any of our historic aerial photographs or other resources like Google Earth. And it doesn't appear that there's been an existing geotechnical evaluation of the pond itself. We did find a report from 1999 for investigation of a landslide that did occur on the upslope side of the pond. And that report does indicate that there may be some underlying conditions, soil, rock conditions that could lead to instability of that slope above as well as below that pond. And we recommended a more thorough investigation, including computer analysis, modeling of the slope, and really take a closer look at if there are any potential hazards, especially to the migrant camp.
Does that conclude your report?
No, that was more of a summary. I don't know if anybody had a chance to look through it, but as I said, it's a preliminary report, and we just looked at available existing documentation, and like I said, remote sensing, things like aerial photographs, things of that nature. And as I said, the one instability that we did note was a landslide that occurred on the upslope side in 1999.
Mr. Faust, I wonder if you could share your screen and show the exhibits with the maps and so on to further explain the condition at the site that you reviewed.
Yes. Just a moment. Oh, here we go. Okay, I'm going to pan down to the figures. So I don't know if everybody's aware where Pond 6 is, but it is, as I noted, above the migrant camp here. And this is the landslide that occurred in 1999. We do have conditions where we have faulting mapped along the western edge of the pond. I will pan down a little bit further and go into the cross section here. So we've got a slope coming down from the ridge. This is the landslide that occurred in 1999. There is in that study, in geotechnical investigation, a bed of soft, weak clay was deemed to be the problem that initiated the landslide, along with just probably rainfall, natural conditions. And we are uncertain, what the extent of that clay may be. It does appear to extend beneath Pond 6, and there may be other clay beds in the area, but there is insufficient data insufficient data to determine if there are some other problems down below the pond. But we certainly do see issues above the pond. I'm not saying that additional landsliding is imminent. It just points out that there could be problems with, or problems that could be mitigated. I don't have those measures at the tip of my fingers, but Pond 6, if it's percolating water, it's going to hit this clay layer, and then we don't know what's going to happen to that water once it does. Without, a more thorough investigation, including borings, possibly backhoe test pits, to really see what the conditions are, the geologic conditions are in the immediate area of Pond 6.
Thank you.
Supervisor Botello?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions for you, Mr. Faust. And that's kind of how I have some real concerns with Pond 6. I'm not saying that, the Sunny Slope Water District shouldn't completely not be able to use Pond 6, but I just think that if that's going to be the percolation pond for the majority of their treated wastewater, I have some real concerns. But, they have ceased using Pond 5, and I think when Pond 5 slipped, it was because they were putting all the water in Pond 5 and loaded that soil structure above a clay zone, and eventually it's a fail. And, I kind of hate to hold this project up on something that really is the responsibility of the Sunny Slope Water District to manage their ponds, and they have multiple ponds, within their district to move percolation water. And there probably like you said, this is a very preliminary report that, the county kind of looked at, and probably at our expense. And we definitely need to, have dialogue with the Sunny Slope Water District as far as, how they're going to, stay clear of the liability of, failure on by over percolating any of their, facilities. But so what are you recommending as far as what the water district should be doing as far as assuring that they're not over percolating or overusing one particular pond, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, I have a couple opinions about that. Number one is the recommendations from this preliminary report were to perform or conduct a more thorough geotechnical investigation, including borings and slope stability analyses. That's one of them. A second one is that the hydrogeologist who they have some monitoring wells out there as required by the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and their conclusion was that there really needs to be some additional monitoring wells established because of the complex geologic structure that's present in that area. The two wells that they do have in that area of Pond 6 seem to be showing some conflicting data, and the hydrogeologist has recommended that there be, as I mentioned, additional wells installed in order to understand where that water's going and what effects that Pond 6 would have or will have on not only groundwater conditions, but that would also lend insight into what sort of stability issues could be present there.
So you could tell with the monitoring wells how much moisture load a soil profile could carry?
Right, and it's typical that when there is water percolating from a pond, that it will mound So essentially creating a sort of a domed area in the water table. And the hydrogeologist did point out that this is not a typical water table condition, and that there could be a lot of variation in that groundwater surface from location to location in that pond area. And without that understanding or without that information of the additional wells, being able to develop a set of additional or being able to understand where that water is going and where it may ultimately end up is uncertain at this time, from what I understand of the hydrogeologist report.
Okay, and one last question, looking at one of your diagrams, where it kind of describes the regional geological map, the QTSB, San Bernardino Formation, is that just, how is that formed? I understand how alluvium is formed, but I don't understand how a QTSB is formed.
Yeah, the San Benito Formation is it's mostly coarse gravel, sand, silt, but it's also, it forms an alluvial environment as well. It's just has been, deposited and subsequently uplifted along faults and through other tectonic processes in the area. But essentially, it consists of an alluvial, what we would call an alluvial package, with variations of sand, silt, gravel, and clay.
Okay,
but it's it's much older than the current geomorphic environment, at least the depositional environment that's occurring now.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Okay.
Supervisor Medina?
Yeah, I probably need a quick civic lessons today. When I'm looking at what we have in front of us, is we have San Benito County and Sunny Slope Water District. So we're saying through a third party, Pond 5 and Pond 6 may not be, may have some abnormalities in the percolation. But we as a county cannot force Sunny Slope Water District to stop using that. Am I correct on that manner? So, County Council?
Yeah, well,
Both? I'm sorry. Just
we
a
have
yes or no.
We have no jurisdiction, if I may, we have no jurisdiction
Okay.
over a special district.
Okay.
They are an independent public agency.
Okay, so.
However, we can reach binding agreements with an independent public agency as to how they're going to operate their facility.
Okay, so I'm looking at this right now, a letter that I received. It said, district utilization will be less than 20% of its wastewater disposal capacity. For example, the disposal capacity of ponds 3 and 4 exclusively is approximately 579 AFY. So they're saying they would use pond 2 and 3, or I'm sorry, 3 and 4 for this subdivision, but they could still use pond 6 for something else. Am I safe to say that? We can't tell them, guess what? Stop using pond 6.
Well, one of the reasons that we obtained this report was to evaluate whether or not, and this would be presented to the board in a future, probably closed session, whether or not to amend the current litigation to seek injunctive relief about the use of ponds 5 or 6.
Well, with all due respect, pond 5 has been in litigation for over 3 years?
No, the lawsuit was filed
Well,
quite recently.
When did the event occur?
The event occurred, I believe, in May of 2018,
Okay, so,
but the lawsuit
well,
was filed.
regardless if it's a lawsuit or not, this has been going on so pretty much what I'm looking at right now is I'm looking at this project here. I'm looking at, some of the Pond 6. They also have, it says they can reactivate, I believe it's Pond 1 to a percolation pond at the south side of Ridgemark. So within their own entity, they can play with their capacity and move it to different areas. Am I safe to say that?
That's my understanding of the way that the district facilities are
So now,
constructed.
us being in the public, stating this publicly, and it's in black and white and no hearsay or she said or he said, we are stating that there is a possibility if they were to overuse or even use Pond 5 and 6, that would probably put them in grave danger. And any type of lawsuit, if something happened on that Pond 6, we probably, I'm not saying we would have it would be a slam dunk, but we've already letting them know that there's a potential danger. Am I going down the right path here?
We just received this report last night, but this could be communicated to Sunny Slope as far as, so that they have knowledge of this, and I believe that they would have knowledge of it because they have knowledge of both the
Yes.
issues as well as we do about the potential.
So there's another thing here that I'm looking at is the slide of 1999, I think it was. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Some,
Yeah,
well, not you
Yes.
said, but
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the research that I've done in the past was, or in the background, I should say, was that Pond 6 had some type of a sprinkler system. And that sprinkler system may have caused that could have been one of the variables in eroding that, or adding to that landslide. They since did away with that sprinkler system that they were using. It was a archaic way to manage that pond, the percolation pond, but it was done. And once when you do some research, you'll find that out. But what I'm looking at right now is you have really two entities, and then there's a third party. The third party being the developer. Now, we are holding, I'm not saying we're holding them hostage, but they should not be involved in this. It should be the city or the county and Sunny Slope Water District. That's where I think the two entities should find out what we need to do and not wait for another, I think, a month and a half or 2 months in order to move forward. That's just what I wanted to bring up.
well, that's up to the board
Yes,
to
sir.
decide whether or not to move forward on this application today or to continue the matter. So that's entirely up to the
Yes, sir.
board.
Appreciate it.
And
Thank you.
That concludes your report, Supervisor Medina?
Yes, sir.
Before I go to Supervisor Hernandez, I agree with Supervisor Medina on his last statement where this is a dispute between the county and Sunny Slope District, and unfortunately, we have a third party, and that is that the developer is involved in this. That's the unfortunate situation. However, we have a lawsuit. We have pending litigation with Sunny Slope Water District. You said it perfectly. We can't dictate where the water's gonna go. And even if they tell us that, there's no guarantees. Past performance tells us otherwise. We are in litigation today. And they refuse to acknowledge, and they continue to fight with us. How is it that we're about to add another hookup to Sunny Slope Water District, in which we can't even trust them because they can't even come to the table and admit? We're talking about slides going down. We're talking about jeopardizing the labor camp. We're talking about harming potential landowners' property rights down the road. And we're about to approve a housing project today, when we have Sunny Slope Water District on calendar to talk about with the judge. And
well,
again,
I can respond to that if you want me to.
you don't need to respond. We already know what the facts are.
Well, it's possible for the district and the county to reach an agreement
Well-
without any admission of prior
Why
liability.
now? Why now? Why couldn't have done it a year ago? Why now?
I can't answer that question. So.
You know, and this is for all my fellow supervisors. We're proud to approve a project, a housing project today, that we're in potential litigation. No, we're in litigation with Sunny Slope Water District. And we can't trust them because they refuse to come to the table. Those are the facts that I do know. And it's unfortunate, the developer, and I apologize to the developer, but it's not about them, it's about us against Sunny Slope Water District. We're about to tell the public that we're gonna approve projects, even though there's might be some issues down the road. That's what it looks like today. Supervisor Hernandez?
This is in District 4, correct? Yeah, Supervisor Gil's district. I remember Anthony, or Supervisor Bertella mentioning we don't have a District 4 representative, but I remember Supervisor Bertella mentioning or asking the question of the impacts of the lawsuit, and even aside from just the possible further litigation, but the risk that we might be assuming to ourselves and supporting something that might create issues down the road and potentially put us liable with the public, right? Because we would have supported something when there's evidence that there's a risk. So unless we can figure out how to mitigate that, and I know we can come up with some kind of agreement, but that doesn't guarantee that there's gonna be a protection for the public interest, I have a hard time. I agree with Supervisor De La Cruz that I have a hard time supporting without any clarity on how we're gonna preserve the public interest for a possible issue down the road.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask our council a couple of questions. And the impression I had from the last meeting when I brought this concern up was that whether, we're not going to be able to tell Sunny Slope exactly how to manage their facility. And we do have this outstanding issue litigation with the district concerning Pond 5. They have since discontinued using it. There's no evidence that they're using Pond 6 right now as anything other than some sort of potential overflow in a wet year, possibly. But with this with the report that we got last night and the issue being discussed in a public setting like this, we basically put Sunny Slope on notice that, there's some real concerns of Pond 6 if they use it in a high capacity. They have other options. Reading the letter that we were I think we all got from Mr. Lander, and understanding the capacity of the Sunny Slope Water District to manage the water in other ponds, is it safe to say that they would try to avoid the liability and risk of using Pond 6 in favor of using, I think they got 4 other ponds for percolation use, and with really a lot of capacity?
Well, that's not really a question I can answer. Perhaps Mr. Lander can address that. Clearly, we need to have further discussion and to reach an agreement with the district. First of all, we need to understand what the risk is from additional geotechnical studies, and if the risk is present, to have an agreement with the district that will avoid that risk. We've alleged in the current litigation that use of percolation ponds on the top of a slope creates an inherently dangerous condition, and that was with regard to Pond 5. The same situation may be present at Pond 6. We don't know for certain yet. Mm-hmm. So it's a resolution of those issues with within the existing facilities or future adjustments for the district could resolve those questions. But that's hypothetical, and again, that would be for Mr. Lander to the extent that he is able to discuss that today, or for discussion in the context of settling the litigation.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in what Mr. Lander's input as far as, you know, him, you know, kind of giving a little bit of more of a comfort zone how this is all work. And I think they do have an idea of what the comfort zone is be, and we could possibly kind of move forward with this project today, which is what I hope.
As I've reviewed the documentation regarding the district's facilities, and as I understand it, their original plan was to use spray irrigation as a means of disposal of wastewater, which was a common technique some period of time ago, and not rely on percolation into the ground as their primary disposal method. And at some point, they made a decision to change that strategy to use percolation ponds. And when they made that change, whether or not they did appropriate geotechnical studies to evaluate the potential results of that when those ponds are on a plateau above a hillside, apparently wasn't done. So now's the time to answer that question, I think. As I understand the district's facilities, they have other options. There are other ponds that they refer to as Ridgemark 2 at the south end. They are interconnected, so those were deactivated, and that increased the flows into ponds, you know, at Pond 5, I think, including Pond 5. So they've discontinued Pond 5. They have a capacity of these decommissioned ponds that they could reactivate. I'd let Mr. Lander address that.
Mr. Lander?
Is he on?
I don't see him.
Is he on? No?
Mr. Lander, if you're on, can you please raise your hand by pressing *9 or the raise your hand icon? I don't believe he's on.
Is there anyone from Sunny Slope Water District?
Oh, it looks like that Rob, that's an engineer, I think, Rob Hilbrett. Oh,
No,
maybe
that-
not.
No. Okay, we're gonna
Hello,
continue.
this is Rob Hillebrecht with Sunny Slope County Water District.
Rob, go ahead. Go ahead, Rob.
Rob, you're muted.
Is he muted?
Rob, you're muted. If you could please unmute yourself.
There, am I unmuted at this point?
Yes.
Yeah, you're good. Yes, you can continue.
Can people hear me?
Yes, we can.
Again.
Okay. So at this point, Sunny Slope is not prepared to make responses to all those questions. We only received that report and this information this morning, and so we have not had a chance to review it or really understand what is being asked and make a well-informed decision and a well-informed statement, especially because we have not had a chance to speak with our attorneys regarding this. And so at this point, unfortunately, we can't address all of those questions, but we would certainly love to continue working very strongly with the county and attempt to get to a resolution of this issue. Thank you.
Okay, anybody has any of the supervisors have any questions, Ron, from a legality, or not even legality? You have any questions that you want him to go
I
back?
have some questions for Rob. If you're, so when I spoke to your predecessor boss, he had indicated to me, and I was somewhat concerned about abandoning Pond 5 and utilizing Pond 6 for the primary disposal location. Is that a true or false kind of way you guys are thinking as far as moving water, treated water?
I currently don't have the authority to answer that. That would be a decision that would have to be made by our board of directors.
What pond are you putting water in now?
Currently, we're putting water into our pond number 3 and a little bit of water into our pond number 4.
Okay, and I have this letter that was to Ty Intravilia, and it's kind of a will serve letter, and it's kind of states that you have a tremendous amount more capacity in those ponds. Is that true to say?
Yes, as far as we know with our the studies that we've done, those numbers are accurate. Those numbers were reported to the Regional Water Quality Control Board in our annual engineering reports. One caveat is that those numbers are of well-maintained ponds. And so in the past, before the ponds had been regularly ripped and regularly dried out and everything, those numbers might not have been accurate at that point. But at this point, under our current operational strategy, those numbers are as accurate as we can get.
Okay, and one last point I'm going to make. I want to move this project forward, and the county has the understanding that the Sunny Slope Water District has the capacity with their wastewater treatment facilities to handle the 160-some units or whatever the number is in their facility. We do have some issues that need to be resolved, and we should have a dialogue. It's not really the third-party developer here that's sitting in the room. It's really between Sunny Slope and the county of San Benito to settle up on what happened a couple of years ago with Pond 5, and to assure that we move forward with good efficiencies and solid treatment of wastewater with other projects that are planned. And that's in the interest of the San Benito County and the Sunny Slope Water District that we work together. And I urge that you kind of communicate that to Mr. Lander and your lawyers too. But I do believe you have the capacity of disposal with 3 and 4 and 2 rather than Pond 6. I think that's problematic. It should be held in reserve. And, until we're confident, where everybody's confident of, what it could do as far as management of wastewater. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Botello. Before I go on, Supervisor Medina, Rob, I just wanted to say thank you for being here in absence of the general manager and the board of directors. But unfortunately, you're the messenger, and I guess we get to shoot you in this one case. And I just don't have confidence in Sunny Slope Water District because for so long we've been at odds, and there's the needle has not changed one way or the other. And unfortunately, we have a third player in this situation, and that's Mr. Ted Intravilla's project, and it's nothing on a reflection on him, it's a reflection on you guys. And I can't wholeheartedly support moving forward knowing that we have litigation with you guys. And so You being here and not the key players, it's not helping the cause one bit. Supervisor Medina?
Well, Rob, sorry to shoot the messenger, but I'm going to side with Jaime for once. It's not very seldom. You know, the problem I have is you made a statement that you want to work with the county, you want to be, you know, work hand in hand. But when we ask a question, especially pertaining to Pond 5 and Pond 6, you're not able to make any type of statement. Is that correct?
I'm not currently at liberty to make any commitments for the district. That's correct.
So what can you make? You can't make any type of decision, basically. So you're just listening to our issues? I take that as a yes?
Did you want a response from that?
Yes.
Yes, I do not have the authority to make those decisions. Those decisions come from our board of directors.
Okay, so basically what I'm looking at is if I wanted to approve a project like this with the with contingent on not using Pond 5 and 6, would that be something your board would even entertain, or are we wasting our time?
That is something that we could bring before our board. I cannot speak as far as how the board would make their decision.
So this just goes back to a year ago when we sat with the attorneys and well, I'm very disappointed in you and your organization. So thank you.
You want to see when they're next?
Thank you, Supervisor Medina. All right, Rob, stay on the line. Maybe someone else will ask some more questions. At this time, I'm gonna have the, excuse me?
You can't answer anything, so what's the difference? What's you use?
But this, we gotta go through the whole process. I understand what you're saying. I'm gonna allow the applicant, if they want to speak. It's gonna be Ann, I imagine, right, Ann?
Ann Hall, here on behalf of the applicant. And the position of the developer is, when going through the CEQA process, we obtained a will serve letter from Sunny Slope, which is typically what's required of a new development, that they have a will serve letter from a municipal water and sewer server, which we did. These questions came up a month ago at the October 6th meeting. We've since gotten a letter from Sunny Slope saying they can serve this project without using Pond 5 and 6, that they have sufficient capacity, and that's been provided to you. That this project will not push them over into using 5 and 6. It is not something that says they will never use 5 and 6, but it is a letter that says they can serve this project without using 5 and 6. Beyond that, we don't have a lot of control over what's going on here. This is an issue that's been going on since 2018 and will probably keep going on for a couple more years. And we have provided, to the extent we can, information from Sunny Slope saying they can serve this project without using the ponds of concern to the county. So to continue to hold up this project because of a situation that existed prior to this project and will exist probably after this project approval, is punishing this project for something it has no control over. So we would really like to get an approval of the project as it stands today. The flip side of that is if we aren't approved, or if we aren't approved because of your concerns about Sunny Slope's ability to provide additional hookups, that would then apply to any Sunny Slope hookups. I mean, that's going to apply to any subdivisions. It's going to apply to somebody applying for a granny unit in Richmond.
One unit.
And so if that's what you want to say today, I mean, that would be the alternative of approving this project today, is shutting down any hookups to Sunny Slope going forward. And I'm not sure that that's what you want to do, from what I hear. It sounds like there needs to be a discussion between the county and Sunny Slope. And that's fine. We just would like to be independent of that and have our project approved on the merits of the project. I believe what's before you today is the CEQA document. the rezone and the PUD ordinance. And while we acknowledge you need to have a discussion with Sunny Slope, we have very limited ability to aid in that discussion. And we would just like to get our project approved. It's a long time before we'd be able to build a house, even if you approve it today. And we'd like to get working on that. But we can't until this gets approved. Do you have any questions for me?
And I'm pretty confident that the whole board feels that this project is a good project. Unfortunately, we have an issue with Central Water District, and they don't want to come to the table. And you're probably right, and that's what the board's going to make a decision today, how future hookups with Sunny Slope are going to occur. You're absolutely right. Unfortunately, you're stuck in the middle. That's the bad thing. You heard him. The main person should be should be here. If their best interest is Sunny Slope Water District, they should be here and fighting for the merits.
Well, my understanding is this lawsuit was filed in May, but this only became an issue on October 6th when this project came into, to be approved. So if this is really an important issue, why is it only an important issue because of us? I understand what you're saying, but it seems this project is being used to have that discussion with Sunny Slope.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I would disagree with that statement, ma'am, only because it's in spite of the project, and this is just speaking me as an individual, but from what I'm gathering from the board, the consistent statement is when there is no project, then there is no issue. Nonetheless, as far as the litigation, that's ongoing. So as far as the development, but ultimately, if there's a development that's coming our way, that we can't just ignore what we're supposed to do with dealing with the impacts of that of the outcomes of this these percolating ponds. So it's and to a certain extent that's exactly why there needs to be an addressing of this so we can mitigate it so that we do have good project like yours adopted. But it's not intended on using it as a tool at all. It's just it's never been addressed because we've had a hard time having this conversation. And what do you do besides keep pushing for it? And if it doesn't happen, then really you can ask yourself, who's the one that's holding it up? Is it the board that's actually trying to talk, or is it Sunny Slope Water District that isn't trying to talk? So
I don't know who's trying to talk and who's not trying to talk, and I can't pass a judgment on that at all. I'm not familiar with those conversations, but I see where it's put us, and I see, like I said, before October 6th, I'm pretty sure you were issuing building permits if someone wanted to build in Ridgemark.
Yes, we were.
So how is that different than us applying for a subdivision?
I think if whoever was to be the subdivision coming before us, we would be asking the same question. And I truly believe that Sunny Slope has the capacity to manage your development and handle it. I really think that could happen. But what happened a couple of years ago was through incompetence and mismanagement of the Sunny Slope Water District. I feel very comfortable saying that in public. They put all that water in Pond 5 and nowhere else, and anybody could figure out that what the landslide was to be inevitable. If they did the same thing and put all their treated wastewater into Pond 6, there's to be a landslide, guaranteed. But if they have, I don't know the skill set of Mr. Lander. I hope he's better at managing water than his previous successor. He probably understands it better and would move water to 3, 4, and 2. And it has plenty of capacity for your project. And this is a catalyst of putting on notice that Sunny Slope Water District, we're watching how you're doing business. And, we have an issue that needs to be resolved right now. And we don't want to have another landslide with Pond 6, period. So I don't know what the board, how we're conditioned this right now, so you could move forward. If that's even possible, I think we have to wait till after the public comment and all the input, and then see what our council is recommending, and then we go from there.
Okay. Thank you, Ann.
I think what, really quick, Mr. Chair, what Supervisor Medina even alluded to is if there was some kind of guarantee that Pond 6 or even 5 weren't being used, then if he would have, Mr. Lander would have said that, then that would have probably changed this conversation and just moving this forward. But until there's a commitment, there's no real way to avoid possible litigation down the road.
Yeah, but I totally understand what you're saying, and I respect Supervisor Medina's position. But when you don't have representative of Sunny Slope District here at the beginning of this presentation, because we all knew that the presentation was going to be today. And we have been in litigation with them for a long time. And you know those closed sessions discussions we had about Sunny Slope Water District. It's just it's a bad taste. It's a bad taste.
Well,
I think that.
wait, hold on a second.
Supervisor Medina?
Should I clarify?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. I think the real issue, I just want to make sure the board knows that this isn't about the litigation between Sunny Slope and the county and whether or not we get reimbursed for the road or anything like that. It's nothing to do with that. The issue is whether or not approving these, this subdivision and having additional water go into the Sunny Slope Water District, whether they have the capacity, and not just the capacity, whether that extra water is going to create risk to the public health and safety due to landslides because of how the water percolates out of the ponds. And that's the issue about the capacity, and not just the capacity, the ability of the system to serve future growth. So I think that the board has three or a couple different options today. It can continue the hearing to a future date. It can make a finding that, and I've got something written out here, that we rely upon Sunny Slope to operate their system in a safe manner and approve the project, or it can approve the project with the new condition of approval.
What
And
condition of approval, ma'am?
we have a condition, well, we can have a couple different we have the one written out that was in the staff report.
Yes.
That's new, if we, instead of doing like a condition of approval that they enter into a contract or something with the county to not use Pond 6, for example, it'd be better to continue it to get that contract approved in advance, rather than throw that as a condition of approval.
Can I try to make a motion or not?
Well, we have to do
We're still in
public
public session, public comment session.
Well,
You still have the floor, Supervisor Medina.
well, once again, Pete, Supervisor Hernandez, I know we were talking about, or you had mentioned we're not using them as a bargaining chip, but we are. Come on, let's call a spade a spade. Unfortunately, they're just sitting on the wrong side. I look at it, taking all emotion out of it, saying there's a project out there. We all like the project, but there's this third party that's preventing us from moving forward, and that's Sunny Slope Water District. I have a letter, we all have a letter saying that they won't, or for this project, they won't use Pond 5 and 6, but I still feel we can approve the project contingent on having a board meeting, or at a board meeting, because this is where the individual says it has to go to, with the water board, stating that for this project, they will not use Pond 5 and Pond 6, and I think that would satisfy everyone. I mean, that's what I'm hearing from everyone, and that's the only decision. I don't even think the general manager can make the decision. I think it has to go to the board of the water board, it sounds like. So I would still be willing to make a motion based upon on that contingent.
That is certainly an option for the board. I am concerned about long-term enforcement of it, because after they sell the properties to future property owners, they're
older. They're going to be the builder, and they're
Right.
not selling their
lots. They're building them themselves, if I
Right,
recall right.
But aren't they gonna sell them to somebody in the end?
Well, they're going to sell them to the end user, yes.
Yeah, so how would we enforce that condition of approval in 10 years?
Well, that's under Sunny Slope, isn't it? That's not.
Yeah, Joel, if I could defer to Joel.
I believe what we're talking about here is an agreement between Sunny Slope Water District
Yes.
and the county of
Thank you.
San Benito. And so it would be a direct contract. We would enforce that as we would enforce any other contract. And the board of the Sunny Slope County Water
They make their
District
decision.
can make a binding agreement not to use ponds 5 or 6, absent, sufficient geotechnical information that it would not pose a substantial risk to the health and safety.
So Joel, would the condition of approval be that the contract not to use 5 and 6 must be entered into before building permits are issued in a format acceptable to the county?
Yes.
I would agree with that.
Joe, I'm surprised. I'm really surprised, you too, Barbara, because we're trying to develop, mold an idea here, an agreement here, without the main player being on the table. And they already expressed to us they refuse to participate.
Hold on.
I got the
talk
floor.
after.
Thank you. And to think rapidly could only give you one end result, and that is a mess. Because we're developing policy for one project that could have unintended consequences for some other projects that are going to be coming to the Board of Supervisors.
Well-
And you're right, Supervisor Medina, if you want to call it as an ace, it's an ace. It is a pond, but this is a big boy. This is going to hurt Sunny Slope Water District big time because they have refused to come to the table and talk about and mitigate these issues that they refuse to talk about.
Well,
Can I say something
the
now?
agreement can be comprehensive in terms of, any future connections. Again, it's an agreement between the county and Sunny Slope Water District. Another possibility that I believe that County Council mentioned would be to continue this matter and ask the Sunny Slope Water District to enter into such an agreement, and we would know the answer at the time you approve this project. And the issue for just to clarify, the issue for the county is part of the what's before you today is to approve a mitigated negative declaration under CEQA.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't, in
It's
doing
better-
so, you need to not have evidence of a potentially significant effect on the environment. And,
Let's-
yeah,
Let's,
so.
let's, in some ways, it's better, if we're gonna put a condition of approval, it's better to have that worked out ahead of time, so nobody challenges the condition of approval after the fact.
Okay, well, can I speak now?
Yeah.
Supervisor Medina?
Well, Supervisor Dela Cruz, this has been going on for almost a year, 6, 7 months. You didn't want this project to begin with. You didn't even know where it was, let alone now you're saying, well, this and this and that. But when you're looking at what we're talking about here is a general manager or the individual that said nothing, they don't have any decision-making authority. It has to go through their board, it sounds like. That's what I learned today. So even if you had the general manager here, that he or she can't make a decision anyway. So the thing here is it needs to go to their board to see if they can actually authorize the non-usage of pond 5 and pond 6. So what I'm thinking is, I don't know what comes first, Barbara. If it is somehow we meet with their board, or we have the applicant meet with their board, and we have a letter saying that for this project specifically, they won't use pond 5 and pond 6, then it comes back to the board, and I think Supervisor Hernandez, would you be more apt to look at it that way? If there was a written letter in black and white from the water board?
Mr. Chair, if I may respond.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to respond to Supervisor Medina's comments, and then I'll let you respond. I appreciate your sincere candid about the situation. Thank you, Supervisor Medina. And Joe, for your information, you're right. It is a PUC and all the other alphabets that you're talking about. But the reality is, you're giving vested rights as today. Any new information, they have a housing development in place. That's the way it works. You know those discussions where people say, how can this project get approved today? And the response is, well, we approved it 20 years ago. 20 years ago is today. That's what it is. It's today.
It's not approved.
And the color could be any which way you want, but the bottom line is still the same. And I just want to inform the board is that this is bad management practice by approving projects where there's a potential litigation with Sunny Slope Water District. And I just want to inform the board that you're about to approve a housing project hookup to Sunny Slope Water District that we cannot trust today. Supervisor Hernandez?
So even for clarification, and the only thing I disagree with Supervisor Medina is that I really am not trying to use this in any way to this development.
I'm not saying you personally, I'm just saying us as a.
Yeah, and that's,
You.
yeah, so I respect that. It's that's your prerogative. In general, though, my biggest interest is that we're protecting the county interest, the public trust, ultimately, making sure another landslide doesn't happen. All things considered, a condition of approval, if there was a way to create some kind of a procedural element where it doesn't allow that project to move forward, because I do agree the project's a good project. It hurts me to think that I would say no to it. Then as long as we're protecting the public interest, then I'm okay with supporting it. I just want to make sure, and honestly, that the hard, I would say along that is the fact that this is a decision that we're making over a district where we don't have representation. But outside of that, I think if we can make sure that there's that element where we ensure that ponds 5 and 6 aren't being utilized, from what I heard from the lady that represents the project, it's a may, they may use 5 and 6. That makes me uncomfortable. But if there was a way to guarantee that it's not going to be used, then I think that it creates a protection for the county. So and because I'm the newest guy in the group, I want to know procedurally what's the possibility to make that practical. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'm going to continue with public comments, and from now on, it'll be just 3 minutes to anybody who comes up to the bottom. Public, so do we have a speaker card? I don't have a card. Paul, you want to go ahead? Go ahead, Paul.
Your name and.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the 3 minutes. I appreciate it more than you know. I've been cooped up in my house or my office for the last 8 months. I might just stay here after the meeting, just hang out and get some different sites. My name is Paul Ravella. I'm an attorney. I've been helping the developer, the applicant, with the transactional aspect of this project, and I've also been kind of helping with the issue of Sunny Slope County Water District and their will serve letter. As you know, they do have a will serve letter. Our firm is also involved in the litigation between Sunny Slope County Water District and the Board of Supervisors, or the County of San Benito, with regard to helping a third party. And I just want to clarify for the board, and by all means feel free to talk to your county council about this, but the litigation involves Pond 5. It doesn't involve Sunny Slope County Water District's service to its constituents. It involves damages, reimbursement for damages, money the county spent cleaning up Southside Road. It doesn't involve the inability to serve its Sunny Slope's customers. And so I just want to clarify, what we're talking about today is Sunny Slope's ability to serve this project, not the use of Pond 5 or paying the county back $1.5 million plus or minus in cost to clean up Southside Road. The second thing is I think if we had our druthers, we'd rather the county approve the project today with the condition of approval that county council has drafted, and maybe you include a third option. One, the way I read it, one is a commitment from Sunny Slope County Water District not to use 5 or 6 for this project. The other is a geotechnical report by an engineer acceptable to the county establishing there is no slope stability issues. The third sounds to be like you guys just talked about, an agreement with Sunny Slope County Water District that satisfies the county about the use of 5 or 6 or lack thereof. And so maybe that's the condition of approval here today. We prefer a decision to be made today in favor of the project with the condition of approval. If we can't have that, then I guess we'd prefer the continuance to January, whatever, or some date earlier if Earth Systems can put together their report sooner. But I agree with everything that's been said here, that my clients are simply football that are being kicked around the field involving a dispute between Sunny Slope and San Benito County that doesn't really involve Sunny Slope's ability to serve its customers. It involves financial compensation for money the county spent cleaning things up. So I appreciate the opportunity to present that to you here today and for the 3 minutes. And I might linger out up front and see you when you're leaving after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Next speaker.
Paul.
I said Paul, did I?
This is Scott.
Oh, I apologize. Sorry about that.
I've been called worse.
Hey, I'm being nice.
Me too.
Ray Pierce, I'm in District 4. I'm a resident for Mr. Hernandez. If you don't know me, I was a planning commissioner for District 4 for 8 years. I worked with the applicants as far as helping to develop a good project that's really great for locals. This is a build-out that's local only, so we're only using local vendors. I don't know if you've heard all of this before, but it so benefits compared to all of the stuff that we set in and approved for vested tentative maps that were sold to Kaufman and Broad and went to people out of county. This is all in county in the project. Also the ADUs and the other stuff, they benefit the locals. We're about the locals. That's what this whole thing is about. Now the other thing is this is about two giants, the county and the water district, okay? And if you take this project only as use, probably the first water hookup won't even happen for 1.5 years. And I'm sorry, I'm not a Debbie Downer like Selena said she was. I'm more of an optimist. So it's like, I believe you guys can get this taken care of in 1.5 years and completely, unless law staff is incompetent or something, I would think that this would be resolved in plenty of time. And then it's probably a good 4-year build out. So you've got water hookups coming at a pace to where Sunny Slope Water, if there was an issue up there, they'd be able to address it. This isn't like all of a sudden open the floodgates and we got a ton of water to deal with in a pond. This is over a long period of time. And because of that, I think it's very easily managed. And a lot of the tentative work that's been done is not enough to actually say that there's a true, real issue here. More testing needs to be done. I'm sure you guys will go for that. And with that said, and with the whole benefit to the county, I'd like you to vote yes for this project today. And thank you all for your time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ray Pierce. Next speaker.
Nancy, if you can state your full name for the record, you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Yes, my name is Nancy Girton, and I live in the Oak Creek subdivision. And I've attended the Planning Commission meeting. I've attended a couple of these board meetings. And I know that we continue to be concerned about the road that's going to go through to that development. I'm also very interested now in the whole Sunny Slope water issue. And I just want to say that I do appreciate your caution regarding Sunny Slope's issues and their commitments. I also strongly feel that, at the end of the day, here we are on November, and I really feel that we need our District 4 supervisor in place before we approve this deal. We've been saying this all along. I think the neighbors are still concerned that we haven't had proper representation, or at least conversation. Caution around this. So I would really push for that to happen, that we wait until the District 4 supervisor is in place. my other concern, as we talk about the water situation, is that whole side of the hill on our side, not the south side road side. There's a fault line that runs through there, and that's why the house at the end of the block was not able to put their garage next to their house, which is where more houses are going to be built. So if we have any issues with the land there, the fault line is also running down that way too. So I'd like to hope that we've looked into that very carefully to make sure that there's stability in that land over there. And then finally, I would just like to know if we're talking about Sunny Slope not using ponds 5 or 6, who's going to monitor that? How are we going to know that they're actually not using ponds 5 and 6? Is there going to be an audit, and who's going to be responsible for ensuring that that is the case? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker card.
Jackie, if you can state your full name for the record, you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. This is Jackie Morris Lopez once again from District 2. So listening to you all discuss this issue, I feel like because you were just in receipt of the report last night and you didn't have proper representation from the other body, the Sunny Slope Water District, I think that you need to continue this issue. And I also agree that you need to have a Board of Supervisor in District 4 to allow them to represent their constituents on this very important matter. Unfortunately, the project is waiting for approval today, but it is what it is. They're caught up in the middle of circumstances out of their control. But in order to do your job that you were elected for, I feel that, today's election day, you'll have the results in the next 24, 48 hours for a District 4 supervisor. If they've been paying attention and they're running for this position, they're well aware of this issue. I think it needs to be continued. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker card.
We have no more speakers via Zoom at this time.
Okay, gonna bring it back to the board. Okay, what's the pleasure, Supervisor Medina?
I need confirmation from County Council. Now, if we were to make a motion, or if I was to make a motion, and it stated that we would approve the project contingent on the water board stating in writing a contract that we would not be using pond 5 or 6, or there was a geological survey done and it was all right to use, and it was to pass, does that give them rights to do anything? Does that give the developer the rights to start building houses? Or does it has to go through that water board first? They don't just have the right to do anything they want. Am I correct on that?
Right, you'd have to meet the conditions of approval.
Yeah, because I know Supervisor Dela Cruz was saying something about it. If we approve it, it's approved, but it's not approved because it's contingent upon a certain thing happening. I just want to,
Right.
I want to be clear.
Yes.
I want to make sure that I'm clear.
Yeah, they have to meet the conditions of approval, and if you did want to add such a condition of approval, I was wondering whether or not we could add it to the existing condition, and then add the words, or this condition may be satisfied by the county and the Sunny Slope Water District entering into an agreement in a form acceptable to the county, prohibiting or restricting the use of ponds 5 and 6.
Yes, I would be.
And that way, they can either satisfy it by a contract, or they can satisfy it by the geotechnical.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm looking for. But I want to make sure, clear to everyone, that they don't have any rights whatsoever unless that contingency is met.
Well, they can do some preliminary work.
Yes, but what I'm saying is they don't have any building permits. They don't have any rights to build a house on there.
Well, if it is a condition of approval for recordation of a final map. So the entitlements picture is a little complicated
That's
here.
what I'm asking, that's why I'm asking.
Because the Planning Commission approved a vesting tentative map. And that approval is final, because no one appealed it, and so it's not before this board.
Okay.
However, a condition of approval of that vesting tentative map is the rezoning of the property and a amendment of the zoning ordinance to change some of the, it's not, yes, the planned unit development provisions of the code. So it's those two items, zoning items, that are before this board today. And part of the approval of a discretionary decision for zoning is to, again, approve the initial study mitigated negative declaration for the project. And part of the problem that we have is that mitigated negative declaration did not consider the slope hazard issue. So by adopting this condition of approval, you avoid that as a problem with the mitigated negative declaration.
Okay. I understood.
Yeah, and it would be tied to building permits. Now, the development process is, once you have a vesting tentative map, you have to then prepare a final map before you can actually begin construction. And so they could take the steps necessary to prepare the final map, and if, when the final map is ready to be recorded, we have satisfied the condition, then they could begin getting building permits to begin construction.
That sounds right to me.
Can you restate your motion again?
I'd like to make a motion.
May I just, before you do that, ask for the concurrence of the RMA director? I do concur, yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to make a motion to approve this project contingent upon either having a contractual agreement with Sunny Slope Water District that pond 5 and 6 would not be used, and or there is a study done on pond 6 stating that it is usable and by you go ahead. How about that?
If we could actually have the exact language, like say that this condition of approval that as written is going to be imposed with the addition of, and read language, this is just kind of messy, but you can try to see whether you can decipher it. And then the staff recommendation is to have approved per staff recommendation items 1 through 5.
Approved per staff recommendation 1 through 5.
Plus the addition of the new condition.
Plus a new condition of approval to avoid any potential indirect geotechnical, soils, environmental impacts prior.
You can say as written.
Oh, as written.
Plus the language.
The condition may be satisfied by the county and Sunny Slope Water District entering into an agreement that pond 5 or 6 will not be utilized, and or the geotechnical soils reports show that it is a
It's not a risk.
It's not a risk. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Under the question. So, you could cut it in so many different ways. At the end of the day, it still becomes the same thing. We're not protecting the public safety. We're about to prove a housing project that we have a litigation with Sunny Slope Water District that we can't trust. We put in conditions, instead of saying, we're gonna make sure the Sunny Slope Water District comes to the table and doesn't prevent applicants like Mr. Tentavias from coming to the board and going through all this hassle. We decided to circumvent this process just the way certain members will were accusing COG of trying to, or LAFCO of trying to circumvent LAFCO, we now have become that group. We will circumvent rules and procedures until we get what we want. And that seems like that's what we have done today. And I'm going to vote no on that motion.
One more thing to answer your.
Hold on a minute. I got Supervisor Patello, then I'll have you, Supervisor Medina. Supervisor Patello.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason I second it is that it clearly states that we're not supporting using ponds 5 and 6 unless they do some more geotechnical surveys as far as the adequacy of the safety of those ponds. And I think it's in the interest of Sunny Slope to be doing that anyway in light of what has happened at Pond 5. I think, as I stated earlier, I truly believe there was a mismanagement of the water district as far as how they were utilizing Pond 5, and that caused a significant landslide. And I don't believe that they want to repeat that and endanger, as it says here, any public health or safety with Pond 6. And so I think that's why they were moving most, if not all of their water to 3 and 4 now. I'm absolutely convinced, reading their reports, their capacity reports, that, you know, their other ponds have more than sufficient capacity to, for not only this development, but for other Ridgemark developments that is coming down the road to accommodate this percolation. I do believe that we, you know, sitting down, reasonable minds, trying to reach a reasonable goal in the public interest that will resolve this. But this is a good project. This is workforce housing. This is for local teachers and public workers and citizens of San Bernardino County. And I think to penalize this over an issue that we need to continue to move forward is not right either. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Patel. Supervisor Medina.
Supervisor Del Cruz, I would agree with you about circumventing this issue if we had no contingency on this, or contingent. We are going over and beyond. We are asking the water board for what we actually want, not using those ponds, or for them to do a third-party study. I don't know how much clearer that can be. We are doing our due diligence, and that's why I'm sitting here making this decision, is based upon that. I think we can get more out of it this way than if we were just to say, well, can you please go see how Pond 6 looks? So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Supervisor Medina. So, unfortunately, we are the elected officials, and Supervisor Patello and myself, we got 2 more months here to go, and we both recognize that. But there are many times why the public votes us in, that is to make those tough decisions. And unfortunately, Mr. Tentatively's project, it's in the middle, and there's no other way how, you know, I'm sorry about that. But the truth of the matter is that Sunny Slope Water District is not going to play. It's not going to come to the table. It's not going to work with us. They're going to say, yeah. And at the end of the day, we're going to have another mudslide. Give 5 years from now, somebody's going to say, damn, Jaime was right. Unless Supervisor Hernandez wants to say anything, I'm going to ask for a vote.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask a question to County Council, because, I mean, these studies are all good and well, and if it says something negative, that still doesn't necessarily guarantee that they're not going to move forward. I mean, or even with the support of they're not going to use 5 and 6. How do we know that if the study says, oh, we just got preliminary information that there's questionable elements, and we're still talking about this? So, what ironclad guarantees? I mean, to me, the project is really good, and I like it, but due diligence is important to me, and I feel like if I just say yes, my worry is that this issue kind of doesn't really, there's nothing to trigger. There is that condition of approval for 5 and 6, but as far as the study, that could be a workaround. I don't know if that's going to have any clarity or ways of guaranteeing that this is gonna get addressed. I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like we have to make sure that we don't have these issues anymore, and at what point, what's gonna stop it? So I'm curious what the study's gonna say that's actually gonna stop this thing if there is an issue.
Well, what's going to stop it is, there are two possibilities. The first possibility, and the one that's clearest, is to have a binding agreement between the county and the Sunny Slope County Water District that they're not going to use ponds 5 and 6 as long as there is a risk of a landslide. The second possibility is that a study is conducted, and we haven't discussed who's going to pay for it and when it happens and so on, but a study is conducted that can provide us with a high level of confidence that there is not a risk from the use of Pond 6, should that go forward. And that judgment under the current draft of the language is up to your RMA director reviewing the technical reports and saying, yes, I'm satisfied that there would not be a risk. Now, the RMA director can present his conclusions to the board and as an informational item, or you can change it to make it to the satisfaction of the board. But those are the ways that the contingencies that are in the motion as drafted would be enforced.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm confident that it's the and or, the study, to a certain extent, I think the study should be expected, but it doesn't, I don't think that should be the directing of what says yes to move this forward. I feel like there's other questions. There's the right dialogue with Sunny Slope Water District. I have grave concerns that I don't have, that there's no District 4 representation. I have concerns that there is no one speaking from the water district, to basically try to figure out a way to make sure that we don't have this issue come up again. So I personally would ask for an amendment maybe for a continuance, because I feel like I wouldn't be doing my due diligence if I just supported it according to the current the current request with that condition of approval. There's still too many questions.
So since I have the motion on the floor, you're asking for a continuance instead?
Yes, Supervisor Medina.
Yes.
So you're willing to withdraw your motion?
I'll withdraw my motion.
Would the second withdraw his motion, second?
I would have preferred to vote, but, I would have done the vote and then did the continuance. But
You want to turn on mic, Anthony? Turn your mic on.
Oh,
Okay.
I would have preferred to do the vote and if it didn't pass, and then do the continuance, but
if you don't take
it's,
Well,
if the first withdrew, I have nowhere to go.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Okay, you want to move it to November 17th meeting, or what do you want to do?
It's up to Peter.
If we can get a guarantee on 17th that we have more clarity, I'm all for it. But if we can't,
You want to delay it? You want to move it forward then? You want the staff to decide what day they feel comfortable?
how can they make this work, whether it's the 17th or 2 weeks after?
Well, I would, first of all, so that we don't have to publish a new notice of hearing, we should continue it to a date certain. And I would appreciate it if we would continue it to the December meeting, December 15th, instead of November. And that would give us time to provide you with more information.
Well,
we're not going to get a study done, but perhaps we will have more information
Granted,
from
Peter.
Sunny Slope Water District.
You want to make a motion on that to continue to the December 15th
What date
meeting?
is that, December?
It's 15th, I
It's the
think.
second Tuesday of the month.
So I make a motion to continue it to December 15th. And if we can find a time certain or sooner,
9 o'clock.
then December 15th is the date.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries 4-0. Is there a motion to adjourn?
No, I don't want to adjourn. Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Spend more time with you, Jaime. Spend all my time with you.
Okay, good.
You got 2 more months, Mark.